in the twilight of the Milky Way, beyond the gaze of 100 telescopes, a planet called Zelthar floated serenely. Its azure oceans shimmered beneath the light of 3 suns, while sprawling forests of crystalline trees spread across its surface like a network of veins. The Zeltharians, a highly intelligent species, had spent millennia advancing their technology, their society thriving on exploration and expansion. Yet, amidst their progress, they remained blissfully ignorant of the impending doom that would unravel their very existence. On a day like any other, the Council of Elders convened in their grand amphitheater, a place built of glimmering stone and adorned with luminescent flora. The air buzzed with anticipation. Today, they were to discuss the findings of the latest exploratory mission to a distant planet, designated as Subject 712, known to its inhabitants as Earth. "The reports from our scouts are promising," Elder Varus declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. "The resources on this blue planet are abundant. We can harness their minerals, and the flora could enhance our energy production." Elder Sale, a cautious voice among the elders, interjected. "But what of the inhabitants? We have observed them for decades. They are primitive, squabbling over land and resources, seemingly unaware of their potential." "Precisely," Varus countered, waving a hand dismissively. "They are incapable of posing a threat. Our technology surpasses theirs by eons. We will take what we need and leave them to their petty conflicts." Sale furrowed his brow, considering the ramifications of their actions. "We cannot underestimate them. They possess a form of intelligence, and their biology is—" "Enough," Varus snapped, silencing the room. "We have deliberated long enough. The decision is made. We will commence extraction at dawn." As the council dispersed, Sale lingered, staring at the starry void beyond the amphitheater. Something gnawed at him, an instinctual unease that he couldn't shake. Earth's inhabitants may be primitive, but they were alive, and life always had a way of surprising those who underestimated it. On Earth, the sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays over a small patch of forest in the Pacific Northwest. Here, in the cool dampness of the underbrush, a vibrant world thrived, one that was invisible to the eyes of most. Millions of bacteria danced in the soil, their unseen lives intertwined in a complex tapestry of symbiosis and survival. Dr. Mia Bennett, a microbiologist, knelt on the forest floor, peering through her microscope. She had dedicated her life to studying these microscopic beings, driven by a passion to uncover their secrets. Today, she was examining a sample she'd collected from a rotting log, a veritable treasure trove of microbial life. "Look at this," she murmured to her assistant, Ethan, who leaned in closer. "These bacteria are breaking down the organic matter at an incredible rate. If we can harness their abilities, we could revolutionize waste management." Ethan nodded, captivated. "But what if there are unknown factors? What if something goes wrong?" Mia smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's the nature of science, Ethan. Discovery is often a leap into the unknown." As they continued their work, high above the Earth, a massive Zeltharian ship breached the atmosphere. It was a marvel of engineering, with a sleek, metallic exterior reflecting the blue of the planet below. The ship, a product of millennia of innovation, was equipped with the latest technology, capable of extracting resources with precision and speed. Inside, the crew of Zeltharians prepared for their mission. They donned their environmental suits, designed to protect them from the harsh elements of alien worlds. As they gathered in the control room, the ship's captain, Taran, addressed her team. "Prepare for descent. Remember, our primary objective is to harvest resources. We do not engage with the natives unless absolutely necessary. Their biological makeup is irrelevant to our mission." Her crew nodded, but a murmur of concern rippled through them. They had all heard the whispers of Elder Sale, tales of how the Earth's inhabitants were more resilient than they appeared. "Engaging cloaking mechanism," Taran commanded, and the ship shimmered as it blended into the surrounding atmosphere, invisible to those below. Back on Earth, Mia and Ethan took a break from their research, stepping outside to enjoy the crisp air. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the trees, and the forest hummed with the sounds of nature. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and somewhere in the distance, a stream babbled. "Do you ever think about how interconnected everything is?" Ethan asked, gazing into the dense woods. Mia nodded. "Absolutely. Every organism plays a role in the ecosystem, no matter how small. It's like a giant web. If one strand breaks, the whole thing can unravel." Ethan chuckled. "A bit dramatic, isn't it? But I get what you mean. I guess it's a reminder that we need to be responsible stewards of our environment." As they spoke, a faint vibration rippled through the ground. It was subtle at first, but grew stronger, resonating in the very core of the earth. Birds took flight, startled by the disturbance, while the trees shivered as if anticipating something monumental. "What was that?" Ethan asked, looking around nervously. "I don't know," Mia replied, her brow furrowing. "It felt unnatural." Before they could ponder further, a streak of light illuminated the sky, a blinding flash that sent them both scrambling for cover. The ground shook violently, and the air filled with a low, rumbling roar. The Zoltharian ship descended, its engines roaring as it broke through the atmosphere, trailing a stream of fire behind it. It aimed for the forest, the target designated in their systems for resource extraction. Back on Zelthar, the Council of Elders watched from their observation platform, oblivious to the chaos their actions would soon unleash. They marveled at the vibrant colors of Earth, the swirling clouds and glistening oceans. "See how magnificent it is," Varus said, his eyes gleaming with greed. "A bounty waiting to be claimed." Sale stood at the back, unease gnawing at him. "We do not yet understand this world. Their ecosystem is intricate and delicate. Our arrival could disrupt everything." "Enough of your caution," Varus snapped again. "We will proceed with the extraction." The ship descended through the clouds, and with a deafening crash, it landed in the heart of the forest. Trees splintered, and the ground quaked under the weight of their technology. The crew emerged, scanning the surroundings with their advanced instruments, oblivious to the ancient dance of life unfolding beneath their feet. What the Zoltharians did not know was that their arrival had awakened something ancient and powerful, an unyielding force that had thrived in the shadows of Earth for eons. In the forest, Mia and Ethan watched in horror as the ground split and trees fell. The vibrant life around them was suddenly shattered, and the air crackled with the energy of the alien ship. "What are we going to do?" Ethan gasped, fear tightening his throat. Mia's mind raced. "We need to get help. We can't let them take anything else." The vibrations intensified, sending a shiver down their spines. Suddenly, a small cloud of dust erupted from the forest floor, swirling upwards in a chaotic dance. From the depths of the soil, an army of bacteria began to awaken, stirred by the disturbance. They multiplied rapidly, a tidal wave of microscopic life propelled by a primal instinct to defend their home. As the Zoltharians began their extraction, they would soon discover that underestimating Earth's bacteria would be their greatest mistake. The very foundation of their mission hinged on a fragile balance, one they had unknowingly disrupted. Little did they know, the fight for survival had only just begun. Mia and Ethan sprinted through the underbrush, the echoes of the Zoltharian ship crashing into the forest still ringing in their ears. The ground trembled beneath them, and the air buzzed with an energy that felt otherworldly. They ducked beneath fallen branches, their hearts racing as they navigated the chaos. "Over here," Mia shouted, spotting a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. "We need to find a place to hide and regroup." They dashed into the thicket, where the thick foliage offered a brief sanctuary from the devastation. As they caught their breath, Mia's mind raced with thoughts of what they had just witnessed. The alien ship was a marvel of technology, its metal glistening like a predator in the sun, but it was the aliens themselves, tall, elegant beings with skin like polished silver and eyes that reflected the cosmos that filled her with dread. "What do they want?" Ethan asked, leaning against a tree, trying to steady his breathing. "Resources, I assume," Mia replied, her voice tense. "But we don't even know what kind of technology they have or how they'll interact with the ecosystem. If they start extracting materials, they could cause catastrophic damage. The ground beneath them pulsed again, this time more violently. The air thickened, as if the forest itself was responding to the alien presence. Mia glanced at Ethan, fear etching lines on his face. "Did you feel that? It's like something is alive down there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia nodded, sensing an energy she couldn't quite define. It might be the bacteria. They play a critical role in the ecosystem, breaking down organic matter, aiding in plant growth. If they sense a threat, they could respond in ways we can't predict. Just then, a thunderous sound erupted from the clearing, followed by a bright flash. They exchanged a terrified glance before edging closer to the edge of the thicket to see what was happening. From their concealed vantage point, they could see the alien crew beginning their extraction process. The Zeltharians deployed strange machinery that unfolded like mechanical insects, burrowing into the ground with precision. Mia's heart sank as she recognized the equipment. They were extracting core materials, precious minerals essential to Earth's stability. "Can't we do something?" Ethan whispered, his eyes wide with urgency. "We need to stop them." Mia's mind raced. "We can't confront them directly. We need to find help. If we can alert the authorities or gather more people, we might have a chance." Just then, the ground shuddered violently again. The bacteria, triggered by the alien machinery, began to rise in a cloud of dust, a swirling mass that danced in the air as if sensing the invaders. Mia could hardly believe her eyes. The microscopic world she studied was now a living force, responding to a threat. "Look," she pointed, "it's like they're mobilizing." The bacteria, thousands, perhaps millions of them, coalesced into clusters, glowing faintly with bioluminescence. They twisted and turned, forming what resembled tendrils that snaked through the air, reaching toward the alien machinery. It was as if they were forming a defense mechanism, an instinctive response to protect their home. But the Zeltharians remained oblivious, engrossed in their task. They laughed among themselves, their voices echoing through the clearing. "These primitive life forms have no chance against our technology," one of them declared, his tone dripping with arrogance. Mia's heart raced as she watched the bacteria draw closer, their bioluminescent tendrils brushing against the alien machines. In that moment, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the air, and the ground erupted. The bacteria enveloped the machinery, spiraling into the crevices, their forms multiplying at an alarming rate. The Zeltharians finally took notice, their expressions shifting from amusement to shock. "What is this?" Taran, the captain, shouted. "Get the containment fields up." But it was too late. The bacteria had found their way into the machines, infiltrating systems designed to withstand the harshest conditions. Alarms blared, and lights flashed as the equipment began to sputter and fail. "Fall back," Taran commanded, but panic spread through the crew. The machines exploded in a shower of sparks, scattering debris and sending the Zeltharians scrambling for cover. Mia and Ethan exchanged glances, exhilarated by the turn of events. "They're fighting back," Ethan exclaimed, a mixture of disbelief and hope in his voice. "Let's go," Mia urged. "We need to warn the others and figure out a plan." They dashed back through the woods, the chaos of the alien attack echoing behind them. As they ran, Mia felt a surge of determination. The bacteria had a remarkable ability to adapt, and if they could harness that potential, perhaps they could find a way to drive the aliens away. As they burst into a small clearing, they spotted a cluster of hikers gathered around a campfire. Mia's heart raced. These people could help them rally against the threat. She rushed forward, waving her arms. "Hey, we need your help," she shouted, panting from exertion. The group turned, their expressions a mix of confusion and curiosity. "What's going on?" a tall man with a bushy beard asked, standing up from the fire. "There's an alien ship. They're taking resources from the forest, and something is fighting back." Mia's voice trembled with urgency. "We need to warn others and get them out of here." The group exchanged glances, skepticism evident on their faces. "Aliens? Are you serious?" a woman asked, her tone laced with disbelief. "I know it sounds crazy," Mia insisted. "But it's happening. You have to believe me." Just then, another explosion rang out in the distance, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The group's skepticism evaporated, replaced by a dawning realization that something truly extraordinary was happening. "Okay, let's go," the bearded man said, a determined look in his eyes. "If what you're saying is true, we need to move." As they gathered their belongings, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. Time was of the essence. The Zeltharians were relentless, and the bacteria's uprising could only hold them off for so long. "Follow me." Mia led the group deeper into the forest, away from the chaos. She remembered a network of caves nearby, an ideal place to hide and strategize. As they navigated through the trees, the sounds of the alien machinery echoed ominously behind them. But with every step, Mia felt a growing sense of purpose. They had to fight for their world, and perhaps even for the bacteria that had begun to show their extraordinary resilience. Finally, they reached the entrance of the cave, a dark maw that seemed to swallow the light. "In here," Mia urged, glancing back anxiously. Once inside, they huddled together, the flickering light of their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. The air was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. "Okay, what's the plan?" the bearded man asked, looking around at the group. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "We need to create a distraction. If we can lure them away from their extraction site, we might buy enough time to figure out how to stop them." Ethan chimed in. "What if we can use the bacteria to our advantage? They seem to respond to the Zeltharians' machines. Maybe we can find a way to amplify that effect." The group murmured in agreement, their initial skepticism giving way to resolve. "I've got some supplies in my pack," the woman said, rummaging through her belongings. "We can create a makeshift device to emit signals that could attract the bacteria." Mia's eyes lit up. "Yes, if we can amplify the bacteria's response, we might be able to overwhelm the Zeltharians and force them to retreat." With newfound determination, the group began to brainstorm. They discussed methods to amplify the bacteria's response, tapping into their collective knowledge. They crafted a rudimentary device using flashlights, batteries, and any electronic components they could scrounge together. As they worked, Mia felt a growing sense of camaraderie among the group. People who had been strangers just moments before were now united by a common cause. They shared stories, fears, and hopes, weaving their lives together in the face of an extraordinary threat. After what felt like hours, they finished assembling the device. It was nothing more than a cluster of lights and wires, but Mia felt a surge of hope as she held it in her hands. "This will amplify the bacteria's response to the Zeltharian technology," she said, her voice steady. "Now what?" Ethan asked, glancing toward the cave entrance. "Now we need to get back to the extraction site and set this up," Mia replied. "We have to move quickly." With a shared sense of purpose, they emerged from the cave and made their way back toward the chaos. The sounds of the Zeltharian ship were still audible, a constant reminder of the danger that loomed over them. As they approached the clearing, Mia's heart raced. The alien machinery was still operational, though now it seemed to flicker erratically, a testament to the bacteria's growing influence. Tendrils of bioluminescence continued to weave through the air, encircling the Zeltharian machines like a living cloak. Mia and Ethan sprinted through the underbrush, the echoes of the Zeltharian ship crashing into the forest still ringing in their ears. The ground trembled beneath them, and the air buzzed with an energy that felt otherworldly. They ducked beneath fallen branches, their hearts racing as they navigated the chaos. "Over here," Mia shouted, spotting a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. "We need to find a place to hide and regroup." They dashed into the thicket, where the thick foliage offered a brief sanctuary from the devastation. As they caught their breath, Mia's mind raced with thoughts of what they had just witnessed. The alien ship was a marvel of technology, its metal glistening like a predator in the sun. But it was the aliens themselves, tall, elegant beings with skin like polished silver and eyes that reflected the cosmos that filled her with dread. "What do they want?" Ethan asked, leaning against a tree, trying to steady his breathing. "Resources, I assume," Mia replied, her voice tense. "But we don't even know what kind of technology they have or how they'll interact with the ecosystem. If they start extracting materials, they could cause catastrophic damage." The ground beneath them pulsed again, this time more violently. The air thickened, as if the forest itself was responding to the alien presence. Mia glanced at Ethan, fear etching lines on his face. "Did you feel that? It's like something is alive down there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia nodded, sensing an energy she couldn't quite define. "It might be the bacteria. They play a critical role in the ecosystem, breaking down organic matter, aiding in plant growth. If they sense a threat, they could respond in ways we can't predict." Just then, a thunderous sound erupted from the clearing, followed by a bright flash. They exchanged a terrified glance before edging closer to the edge of the thicket to see what was happening. From their concealed vantage point, they could see the alien crew beginning their extraction process. The Zoltharians deployed strange machinery that unfolded like mechanical insects, burrowing into the ground with precision. Mia's heart sank as she recognized the equipment they were extracting: core materials, precious minerals essential to Earth's stability. "Can't we do something?" Ethan whispered, his eyes wide with urgency. "We need to stop them." Mia's mind raced. "We can't confront them directly. We need to find help. If we can alert the authorities or gather more people, we might have a chance." Just then, the ground shuddered violently again. The bacteria, triggered by the alien machinery, began to rise in a cloud of dust, a swirling mass that danced in the air as if sensing the invaders. Mia could hardly believe her eyes. The microscopic world she studied was now a living force, responding to a threat. "Look," she pointed, "it's like they're mobilizing." The bacteria, thousands, perhaps millions of them, coalesced into clusters, glowing faintly with bioluminescence. They twisted and turned, forming what resembled tendrils that snaked through the air, reaching toward the alien machinery. It was as if they were forming a defense mechanism, an instinctive response to protect their home. But the Zoltharians remained oblivious, engrossed in their task. They laughed among themselves, their voices echoing through the clearing. "These primitive life forms have no chance against our technology," one of them declared, his tone dripping with arrogance. Mia's heart raced as she watched the bacteria draw closer, their bioluminescent tendrils brushing against the alien machines. In that moment, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the air, and the ground erupted. The bacteria enveloped the machinery, spiraling into the crevices, their forms multiplying at an alarming rate. The Zoltharians finally took notice, their expressions shifting from amusement to shock. "What is this?" Taran, the captain, shouted. "Get the containment fields up." But it was too late. The bacteria had found their way into the machines, infiltrating systems designed to withstand the harshest conditions. Alarms blared and lights flashed as the equipment began to sputter and fail. "Fall back," Taran commanded, but panic spread through the crew. The machines exploded in a shower of sparks, scattering debris and sending the Zoltharians scrambling for cover. Mia and Ethan exchanged glances, exhilarated by the turn of events. "They're fighting back," Ethan exclaimed, a mixture of disbelief and hope in his voice. "Let's go," Mia urged. "We need to warn the others and figure out a plan." They dashed back through the woods, the chaos of the alien attack echoing behind them. As they ran, Mia felt a surge of determination. The bacteria had a remarkable ability to adapt, and if they could harness that potential, perhaps they could find a way to drive the aliens away. As they burst into a small clearing, they spotted a cluster of hikers gathered around a campfire. Mia's heart raced. These people could help them rally against the threat. She rushed forward, waving her arms. "Hey, we need your help," she shouted, panting from exertion. The group turned, their expressions a mix of confusion and curiosity. "What's going on?" a tall man with a bushy beard asked, standing up from the fire. "There's an alien ship. They're taking resources from the forest, and something is fighting back." Mia's voice trembled with urgency. "We need to warn others and get them out of here." The group exchanged glances, skepticism evident on their faces. Aliens? Are you serious? A woman asked, her tone laced with disbelief. I know it sounds crazy, Mia insisted, but it's happening, you have to believe me. Just then, another explosion rang out in the distance, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The group's skepticism evaporated, replaced by a dawning realization that something truly extraordinary was happening. Okay, let's go, the bearded man said, a determined look in his eyes. If what you're saying is true, we need to move. As they gathered their belongings, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. Time was of the essence. The Zeltharians were relentless, and the bacteria's uprising could only hold them off for so long. Follow me, Mia led the group deeper into the forest, away from the chaos. She remembered a network of caves nearby, an ideal place to hide and strategize. As they navigated through the trees, the sounds of the alien machinery echoed ominously behind them. But with every step, Mia felt a growing sense of purpose. They had to fight for their world, and perhaps even for the bacteria that had begun to show their extraordinary resilience. Finally, they reached the entrance of the cave, a dark maw that seemed to swallow the light. In here, Mia urged, glancing back anxiously. Once inside, they huddled together, the flickering light of their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. The air was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Okay, what's the plan? The bearded man asked, looking around at the group. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. We need to create a distraction. If we can lure them away from their extraction site, we might buy enough time to figure out how to stop them. Ethan chimed in. What if we can use the bacteria to our advantage? They seem to respond to the Zeltharians' machines. Maybe we can find a way to amplify that effect. The group murmured in agreement, their initial skepticism giving way to resolve. I've got some supplies in my pack, the woman said, rummaging through her belongings. We can create a makeshift device to emit signals that could attract the bacteria. Mia's eyes lit up. Yes, if we can amplify the bacteria's response, we might be able to overwhelm the Zeltharians and force them to retreat. With newfound determination, the group began to brainstorm. They discussed methods to amplify the bacteria's response, tapping into their collective knowledge. They crafted a rudimentary device using flashlights, batteries, and any electronic components they could scrounge together. As they worked, Mia felt a growing sense of camaraderie among the group. People who had been strangers just moments before were now united by a common cause. They shared stories, fears, and hopes, weaving their lives together in the face of an extraordinary threat. After what felt like hours, they finished assembling the device. It was nothing more than a cluster of lights and wires, but Mia felt a surge of hope as she held it in her hands. This will amplify the bacteria's response to the Zeltharian technology, she said, her voice steady. Now what? Ethan asked, glancing toward the cave entrance. Now we need to get back to the extraction site and set this up, Mia replied. We have to move quickly. With a shared sense of purpose, they emerged from the cave and made their way back toward the chaos. The sounds of the Zeltharian ship were still audible, a constant reminder of the danger that loomed over them. As they approached the clearing, Mia's heart raced. The alien machinery was still operational, though now it seemed to flicker erratically, a testament to the bacteria's growing influence. Tendrils of bioluminescence continued to weave through the air, encircling the Zeltharian machines like a living cloak. Here. 4-0 Mini. You said. Next chapter 2,000 words. Chat, he said. Chat. Homeworld. Chapter 3, The Stand. Here. Mia gestured toward a vantage point behind a cluster of trees overlooking the extraction site. We can set up the device here. It'll give us a clear line of sight to the machines. The group nodded, moving quickly and quietly into position. Mia felt a mix of adrenaline and fear coursing through her veins. The stakes were higher than she could have ever imagined, and the weight of their mission settled heavily on her shoulders. Ethan worked quickly to secure the device among the branches of a nearby tree, aiming it toward the alien machinery. The low hum of the Zeltharian technology resonated through the air, a reminder of their imminent threat. "Are you sure this will work?" Ethan asked, his brow furrowed as he connected the last wires. "It has to," Mia replied, though doubt flickered in her mind. "If the bacteria can adapt to their presence, maybe we can harness that instinct to drive them away." From their perch, they observed the chaos unfolding below. The Zeltharians were frantically attempting to regain control of their machinery. Sparks flew as their attempts to repair the damage caused by the bacteria were met with failure. The ground itself seemed alive, pulsating with energy, and the air shimmered with the glow of the bioluminescent bacteria. "Now," Mia whispered, heart pounding as Ethan activated the device. A bright flash erupted, sending beams of light spiraling into the air. The signals resonated with the bacteria, and they began to swirl with renewed energy, creating a stunning display of luminescence. The effect was immediate. The bacteria surged forward, their glowing tendrils extending toward the Zeltharian machines with an almost sentient purpose. A loud alarm rang out from the alien equipment, red lights flashing wildly as the Zeltharians scrambled to comprehend the sudden onslaught. "Look!" Mia pointed as the tendrils wrapped around the alien machines, infiltrating crevices and openings, snaking through their systems. The Zeltharians shouted in panic, their voices rising above the chaos. "Shut it down. We need containment fields." Terran's voice broke through the clamor, but her command came too late. The bacteria had already taken hold, and the machines began to sputter and spark uncontrollably. Mia felt a surge of hope as she watched the Zeltharians retreat, their once confident demeanor replaced by fear. "It's working. They're losing control," she shouted to the group, excitement bubbling within her. "Keep the device focused," Ethan urged, adjusting the positioning as the bacteria intensified their attack. They poured like liquid light into every gap and crevice, effectively overrunning the alien machinery. As the scene unfolded before them, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing something extraordinary, an alien force being overwhelmed by a seemingly insignificant life form. The microorganisms they studied for years were now standing as Earth's defenders, and it was awe-inspiring. "Let's move closer," she said, ready to capitalize on their momentum. "We need to see if we can force them to retreat entirely." The group nodded, and they slipped through the underbrush, inching closer to the fray. The once imposing Zeltharian crew was now in disarray, rushing around as their technology failed. "Prepare the transport ship. We have to get out of here," Terran yelled, desperation creeping into her voice. Mia felt a rush of exhilaration. They were winning, but she knew they had to keep the pressure on. "Keep the device running," she instructed Ethan, who had a firm grip on the controls. "We can't let up now." As they crept closer, the scene became increasingly chaotic. The Zeltharians attempted to regroup, pulling together their resources to counteract the unexpected onslaught. They activated containment fields, shimmering barriers of energy that flickered under the pressure of the bacteria's advance. "Those fields might hold them off for a bit," Mia murmured, studying the shimmering barriers. "But we need to break through. If we can disrupt their control long enough, they might not be able to escape." Suddenly, one of the Zeltharians, a tall figure with striking features, caught sight of them. "Over there, the humans," he shouted, pointing directly at Mia and her group. "Run!" Ethan shouted, panic erupting in his voice. The group scattered, darting for cover as the Zeltharians activated their own defensive measures. Energy beams shot through the air, illuminating the forest in bursts of bright light. Mia ducked behind a fallen log, her heart pounding in her chest. She glanced back at Ethan, who was desperately trying to keep the device focused. "Keep it steady," she called out, anxiety tightening her throat. Just then, a beam of energy struck nearby, sending dirt and debris flying. Mia covered her head, feeling the ground tremble beneath her. The Zeltharians were now fully aware of the humans' involvement, and they were determined to eliminate the threat. "Hold your ground," Terran shouted, rallying her crew as they attempted to reclaim control over their machinery. Mia took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. She had to trust in the bacteria, the living force they had unleashed. If they could just hold out a little longer, maybe they could force the Zeltharians to retreat entirely. "Ethan," she shouted, glancing back at him. "Can you amplify the signal? Make it even stronger." "I'll try," he called back, adjusting the device frantically. The bacteria, sensing the increased energy, surged forward, their bioluminescent tendrils illuminating the forest with an otherworldly glow. With each pulse of light, the Zeltharian machines sputtered and sparked, their systems failing under the relentless onslaught. The containment fields flickered, struggling to maintain their integrity as the bacteria infiltrated deeper. "Fall back! We can't hold them!" one of the Zeltharians shouted, panic creeping into their ranks. Terran gritted her teeth, determination shining in her eyes. "We can't let them win. Engage emergency protocols." But as the energy beams continued to fire and the bacteria swarmed, it became evident that the tide had turned. Mia watched as the Zeltharians began to retreat, scrambling back toward their ship, desperation etched on their faces. "Now's our chance," Mia yelled to the group, her voice filled with urgency. "We have to push forward." Together, they advanced, moving closer to the heart of the conflict. The energy beams crackled around them, but the threat of the Zeltharians was dwindling. The sight of their once imposing machinery, now faltering, was a powerful motivator. The bacteria surged like a living wave, enveloping the remnants of the alien machinery and cutting off any chance for a coordinated defense. The Zeltharians, once proud and confident, now seemed overwhelmed and outmatched by the very life forms they had underestimated. Mia felt a rush of exhilaration as the Zeltharians boarded their ship, abandoning their equipment in a desperate bid for escape. She could see Terran, the captain, scanning the area with a frantic gaze, realizing the situation was slipping away from her grasp. "Look," Ethan pointed toward the ship. "They're trying to leave." "Then we need to stop them," Mia replied, her resolve hardening. "If they get away, they'll regroup and come back stronger." "Right," Ethan nodded, determination flooding his features. "We can't let that happen." They pressed on, rallying the group as they approached the alien ship. The air buzzed with energy, and the light from the bacteria painted the surroundings in vibrant hues, an eerie juxtaposition against the cold, metallic structure of the Zeltharian craft. "Can you aim the device at the ship?" Mia shouted to Ethan, who quickly adjusted it once more. The bacteria reacted instinctively, shifting and moving as if responding to the newfound target. "Here goes nothing," Ethan exclaimed, activating the device. A burst of light shot toward the ship, and the bacteria responded, swirling in an even more frenzied dance as they surged toward the Zeltharians. Inside the ship, alarms blared as the Zeltharians struggled to stabilize their systems. "We need to engage emergency launch protocols," Terran barked, her voice taut with urgency. But as they scrambled to activate their escape, the bacteria poured into the ship's engines and systems, triggering a cascade of failures. "No, not now," Terran shouted, frustration boiling over. She slammed her fist against the control panel, but it was too late. The systems began to spark and sputter, and the ship shuddered violently. "Captain, we're losing control," one of the crew members yelled, panic evident in their voice. Mia and her group watched as the ship began to tilt, the Zeltharians frantically trying to regain control. It was a chaotic scene, one that underscored the sheer force of nature they had unintentionally unleashed. "Let's go," Mia shouted, spurring the group forward. They moved toward the ship, emboldened by the realization that they had the upper hand. As they approached, they could see the Zeltharians scrambling to escape. "We need to make sure they can't get away," Ethan urged. Mia nodded, her heart racing with purpose. "If we can disable their engines, they won't be able to leave." They reached the ship just as the last of the Zeltharians boarded, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The air crackled with tension as Mia and her group surged toward the Zeltharian ship, determination etched on their faces. They were no longer just a band of terrified hikers. They were defenders of their world, united against an otherworldly threat. "Ethan, keep the device focused on the engines," Mia commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The device pulsed with light, illuminating the surroundings as it directed the bacteria toward the ship. "Got it," Ethan replied, adjusting the aim as the bioluminescent tendrils began to flow like a river toward the ship's underbelly. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying. It was a vivid display of nature's raw power against alien technology. The Zeltharians, clad in their sleek suits, scrambled in a frenzy. Taryn stood at the threshold of the ship, her expression a mix of rage and disbelief. "You think you can stop us?" she shouted, rallying her crew. "We will not be defeated by these primitive creatures." "Primitive? You underestimated us," Mia shot back, stepping forward, her voice steady despite the fear thrumming in her veins. "We're not here to let you destroy our home." As she spoke, the bacteria began to infiltrate the ship's engines. Pulses of light surged through the machinery, causing the ship to tremble. Taran's crew struggled to regain control, frantically pressing buttons and shouting commands. "Reinforce the containment fields, now," Taran ordered, but the energy barriers flickered and dimmed under the relentless assault of the bacteria. "Do you even understand what you're dealing with?" Taran spat, her composure faltering. "You're playing with forces you can't comprehend." Mia took a step closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "No, you're the ones who don't understand. Life adapts and fights back. You came here thinking you could take whatever you wanted, but this planet isn't yours to exploit." The tension in the air was palpable. The Zeltharians, who had once believed they could conquer this world with ease, now faced a force they had never anticipated. The bacteria swarmed around the ship, seeping into every crevice, a relentless tide of life determined to protect its home. "Prepare to launch the escape pods," Taran shouted, panic creeping into her voice. The Zeltharians were beginning to realize that their control was slipping away. "Not so fast," Mia shouted back, adrenaline surging through her. "You won't get away that easily." As the group moved closer, Ethan shouted, "They're trying to initiate the escape sequence. We have to disable the pods." Mia nodded, her mind racing. "We need to find a way to cut off their escape routes. If we can disable the ship completely, they won't have a choice but to confront us." With newfound urgency, the group rushed toward the ship's entrance. The air hummed with tension, and Mia felt an electric thrill as they moved forward. She could see the panic in the Zeltharians' eyes, and it fueled her determination. "Stay together," Mia called, and they pressed into the ship, the sleek metallic interior illuminated by the flickering lights. The ship felt cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the vibrant life outside. Inside, the chaos intensified. The Zeltharians were desperately attempting to stabilize their systems, but the onslaught of bacteria was relentless. Sparks flew, and alarms blared, creating a cacophony that filled the air. "Over there, the control panel," Ethan pointed to a large screen flashing warnings and alerts. "If we can reach it, we might be able to shut down the escape pods." "Let's go," Mia shouted, leading the charge. They sprinted toward the control panel, but as they approached, a wall of Zeltharians stood in their way, desperate to defend their ship. "Stop them," Taran yelled, her voice sharp with authority. The Zeltharians braced themselves, ready to fight against the invading humans. Mia's heart raced. "We don't want to hurt you, we just want you to leave." "Leave? You're too late for negotiations," Taran replied, her eyes flashing with defiance. "We will not abandon our mission." The two sides clashed as Mia's group surged forward, determination surging through them. The Zeltharians were taller and stronger, but the humans had a fierce resolve on their side. "Get to the control panel," Mia shouted, pushing her way through the chaos. She could see Ethan already reaching for the console, his fingers flying over the controls in an effort to disable the escape systems. Just as he began working, Taran lunged at Mia, attempting to tackle her away from the control panel. They both tumbled to the ground, a flurry of limbs as they grappled. Mia struggled, her heart pounding as she fought to keep her grip. "You don't have to do this," she gasped, trying to appeal to whatever sense of reason might still exist within Taran. But Taran was fueled by desperation, refusing to yield. "You don't understand what we've come for. We have no choice. The chaos of the battle around them swirled like a storm. Ethan shouted from the control panel, "I'm almost in, just hold her off." Mia glanced over to see the bacteria continuing to overwhelm the ship's systems, the glow intensifying as they infiltrated deeper. A surge of hope coursed through her. They could win this, but they had to act fast. With a burst of energy, Mia pushed Taryn off her, scrambling to her feet. "You don't have to fight us," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You can still leave peacefully." Taryn hesitated, momentarily thrown off balance by Mia's words. "Peacefully?" she repeated, disbelief mixing with uncertainty. "Yes," Mia urged. "You can still stop this. You're losing control of your ship, and if you don't leave now, you'll be trapped here." Ethan, now focused on the control panel, shouted, "I'm shutting down the escape pods. You need to back off." The Zeltharians exchanged glances, doubt creeping into their ranks. Taryn glanced back at the panel, then at Mia. "What do you know about our mission?" she challenged. "More than you think," Mia replied, her voice steady. "You think you can just take from this world without consequence, but everything is interconnected. This planet fights back. You've seen it." Taryn's eyes narrowed, contemplating Mia's words as the bacteria swarmed around them. The pulsing glow was now a living force, a reminder of the consequences of their actions. "Enough!" Taryn finally shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "We will not be intimidated by microbes." But just then, a massive spark erupted from the control panel, sending shockwaves through the ship. The bacteria surged in response, their luminescent tendrils weaving together in a brilliant display. "Get back!" Ethan yelled, stepping away from the panel as it began to flicker and fail. "They're overwhelming the systems." In that moment, the Zeltharians realized the depth of their mistake. Taryn turned, her face a mix of fear and anger. "This isn't over," she shouted defiantly, but the determination in her voice faltered as she recognized the impending crisis. The ship trembled violently as the bacteria infiltrated vital systems. Alarms blared louder, warning of imminent failure. The Zeltharians could no longer deny the reality. They were losing their ship. "Fall back! To the transport!" Taryn shouted, her voice frantic as she signaled her crew to retreat. "We need to get out of here." Mia felt a rush of triumph, but it was short-lived. "Don't let them escape," she urged her group. "We can't let them regroup." The Zeltharians raced toward the transport bay, desperation fueling their movements. Mia and her group pursued, their hearts racing with adrenaline as they pushed through the chaos. "Ethan, can you disable the transport?" Mia shouted, urgency lacing her words. "I'll try," Ethan replied, scrambling to reach the control panel for the transport. "If I can access their systems, I might be able to lock it down." As they reached the transport bay, Mia glanced back at the main control panel, now flickering ominously. The Zeltharians were fighting to regain control, but the bacteria surged forward, enveloping their technology. "Now!" Mia shouted, urging Ethan to act quickly. The stakes were high, and they couldn't afford to let the Zeltharians escape. Ethan worked furiously, fingers flying over the controls. "I'm in," he exclaimed, a mix of exhilaration and concentration etched on his face. "I'll lock down the transport systems." Mia and the others moved to support him, their collective determination filling the air. The Zeltharians, realizing their plan was falling apart, scrambled to stop them. "Don't let them take control," Taryn shouted, her voice filled with urgency. The Zeltharians rushed forward, attempting to overpower Mia's group. "Stand your ground," Mia shouted, rallying her friends as they faced the oncoming wave. They braced themselves, ready to confront the alien crew with every ounce of resolve they had. The tension reached a breaking point as the two sides clashed again. Mia felt her heart racing, adrenaline surging as they fought to protect their home. "Just a few more seconds," Ethan shouted, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked the control panel. The alarms blared around them, a cacophony that amplified the chaos. Mia could see the Zeltharians surging forward, desperation in their eyes, and she felt her heart race. Stay focused, Mia called out to her group, determination flooding her veins. We can't let them take control. The Zeltharians were moving in waves, their sleek, alien forms darting through the transport bay. Terran led the charge, her eyes fierce with anger. We will not be stopped by these humans, she shouted, rallying her crew. Mia stood at the forefront, ready to confront Terran as the two sides clashed. The air crackled with tension, and every second felt like an eternity. The thought of losing this battle weighed heavily on her, but the flickering glow of the bacteria surrounding them gave her strength. Hold the line, Mia shouted, feeling a surge of adrenaline as she faced the advancing aliens. Her friends positioned themselves beside her, forming a barrier of resolve. Ethan's fingers danced over the control panel, his expression one of fierce concentration. Come on, he muttered under his breath, eyes glued to the screen. The Zeltharians pressed forward, their movements quick and agile, but Mia and her group held their ground. A sudden surge of energy coursed through the air as the bacteria intensified, filling the transport bay with a vibrant light. Push back, Mia commanded, stepping forward to confront Tarn. You can't win this fight. Your technology is failing, and you're outnumbered. Outnumbered? Terran's voice dripped with disdain. You think a few microbes can stop us? We've faced far greater challenges than you. But Mia could see the doubt in Terran's eyes, the flicker of uncertainty as the ship trembled under the onslaught of the bacteria. This is about survival, Mia shouted back. You can leave, and we can end this peacefully. Just admit you were wrong. Never, Terran snapped, lunging forward to confront Mia. The two collided, grappling for control as the chaos swirled around them. Mia felt a mix of fear and determination, knowing that the outcome of this struggle could mean the difference between life and destruction for her home. Ethan, what's happening? Mia shouted as she struggled with Terran. I'm trying to override the transport systems, Ethan yelled back, his voice strained. But the interference from the bacteria is making it difficult. Mia pushed Terran back, gaining some distance. We can't let them escape, she shouted to her friends, who were struggling to hold off the Zeltharians. In that moment, something shifted in the air. The bacteria surged forward with renewed vigor, responding to the tension, a living embodiment of the world's defense. The vibrant light pulsed rhythmically, illuminating the transport bay and casting eerie shadows across the combatants. Look, Mia shouted, pointing to the flickering lights of the control panel. Ethan, can you redirect the power to the containment fields? I'll try, he replied, determination flooding his voice. If I can channel the energy, it might create a feedback loop that will overload their systems. Do it, Mia urged, focusing her attention back on Taryn, who was regaining her footing. We have to keep them from regrouping. As the battle intensified, Mia felt the tide turning in their favor. The Zeltharians were beginning to falter under the relentless pressure of the bacteria. This is your last chance, she shouted to Taryn. You can still leave with your crew. But Taryn's eyes burned with defiance. We won't be intimidated by you or your bacteria, she lunged again, aiming to tackle Mia, but this time Mia was ready. She sidestepped and pushed Taryn back with a forceful shove. Enough, Mia yelled, her voice echoing in the chaotic environment. You're risking everything for a mission built on lies and exploitation. This planet isn't yours to conquer. Taryn stumbled, her expression shifting from anger to uncertainty. For a fleeting moment, Mia saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the realization that perhaps they had gone too far. Ethan, now, Mia shouted, her heart racing. With a fierce determination, Ethan focused on the control panel, sweat glistening on his brow as he navigated the complex systems. I'm redirecting the power, he yelled, fingers flying as he worked to exploit the vulnerability in the Zeltharian technology. Mia turned back to the fray, her friends holding strong against the advancing Zeltharians. We need to hold them off just a little longer, she urged, her voice filled with urgency. Suddenly, a loud crackling noise filled the transport bay, and the lights flickered ominously. The bacteria surged with newfound energy, wrapping around the Zoltharian equipment and infiltrating their systems. "Keep them at bay," Ethan shouted as he concentrated on his task. The control panel erupted in sparks, and the energy levels fluctuated dangerously. "Get back," Taran yelled, realizing the danger of the situation. "We have to escape." But the tide had turned. The bacteria, like an unyielding wave, pressed forward, pushing against the Zoltharian technology with relentless force. The containment fields flickered and began to fail, sparking wildly as they struggled to contain the onslaught. "I'm almost there," Ethan exclaimed, his voice strained but determined. "Just a little longer." Mia pushed Taran back again, refusing to let her regain her footing. "You need to accept that this is over," she shouted, adrenaline surging as she fought to keep her opponent at bay. The other Zoltharians began to retreat, their once steadfast resolve crumbling in the face of overwhelming odds. The bacteria surged toward the control panel, illuminating the room with a fierce light. "Now, Ethan," Mia yelled, the urgency in her voice palpable. With one final push, Ethan hit a button, and the control panel erupted with energy. The ship shuddered violently as the feedback loop coursed through the Zoltharian systems, causing alarms to blare and sparks to fly. "Get out! We're going to blow!" Taran shouted, her voice rising in panic as she backed away from the transport bay. "Retreat, now!" one of the other Zoltharians yelled, fear etched on their faces. Mia felt a rush of triumph, knowing that their struggle had turned the tide. "You can leave now, Taran," she called out, the adrenaline coursing through her as she faced the retreating crew. "But don't come back. This world will fight back." With that, the remaining Zoltharians scrambled for the exits, abandoning their mission as the bacteria continued to overwhelm their systems. The ship trembled as energy surged through the hull, and the glow of the microorganisms illuminated the chaos around them. "Ethan, let's get out of here," Mia shouted, her heart racing as the tension reached its peak. "Right behind you," Ethan replied, pulling away from the control panel and joining her as they sprinted toward the exit. They raced through the transport bay, the energy crackling around them as the ship began to fail. The bacteria surged like a living wave, engulfing the equipment and systems with relentless power. "Move, move, move," Mia urged, adrenaline surging as they burst out into the open air. The forest around them was alive with the glow of the bacteria, a vivid display of nature's defense against the invading force. They sprinted away from the ship, the distant alarms and chaos behind them fading as they put distance between themselves and the failing vessel. As they reached the cover of the trees, they turned back to watch the Zoltharian ship. The glow of the bacteria pulsated like a heartbeat, and the ship trembled violently as its systems began to fail completely. "It's working," Ethan shouted, his eyes wide with exhilaration. "Let's hope they've learned their lesson," Mia replied, her heart pounding in her chest. "This world isn't theirs to conquer." The Zoltharians scrambled to evacuate, the remaining crew fleeing as the bacteria overwhelmed their ship. The once mighty vessel shuddered, and with a final surge of energy, it began to destabilize, sending a shockwave through the air. Mia and her friends watched as the Zoltharian ship erupted in a brilliant display of light, the bacteria igniting like fireworks in the sky. The echoes of their victory reverberated through the forest, a reminder of the power of life and resilience. "We did it," Ethan exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief. "Yeah, we did," Mia replied, a mix of relief and triumph washing over her. "But this is just the beginning. We have to make sure they don't come back." As they stood in the forest, the glow of the bacteria lighting their way, they knew their battle was far from over. The Zoltharians would regroup, and the fight for their home would continue. But for now, they had achieved the impossible. They had stood against an alien threat and emerged victorious. "Let's head back," Mia said, determination igniting within her. "We need to gather everyone and prepare for what's next. We have to make sure we're ready." The sun was just beginning to rise over the horizon, casting golden rays through the dense foliage of the forest. Mia, Ethan, and their friends emerged from the trees, the weight of the night's battle still heavy on their shoulders. They had faced the Zoltharian threat, and for now, their world was safe. But they all knew that peace would be a fleeting victory. As they reached the clearing where the rest of their group had gathered, Mia could see the flicker of concern in their eyes. Word of the confrontation had spread, and she felt the weight of their anticipation pressing down on her. "Are you all okay?" one of her friends, Leela, called out, her voice filled with worry. "We're fine," Mia replied, forcing a smile despite the lingering adrenaline. "But we need to talk about what just happened." Ethan stepped forward, catching his breath. "We faced them head on, but it's not over. They'll regroup, and they'll come back with a vengeance." The group fell silent, absorbing the reality of their situation. They had fought bravely, but the Zeltharians were not easily deterred. Mia could see the fear in their eyes, a reflection of her own uncertainty. "What do we do now?" asked Jake, his brow furrowed with concern. "We can't just wait for them to come back." "We need to prepare," Mia said, her voice steadying as she took charge. "We have to gather everyone, inform the towns and the outlying communities. They need to know what we're up against." Leela nodded, her determination igniting. "I can rally the folks at the shelter. They'll listen to us." "I'll reach out to the others in the valley," Ethan added. "We can form a coalition and strategize. If we work together, we might have a chance." "Good," Mia said, feeling a surge of hope. "Let's split up and meet back here by dusk. We need to spread the word and prepare for what's coming." As they set off in different directions, Mia felt a sense of purpose driving her forward. The world outside the forest was a vast, interconnected web of lives and stories, and she knew that every person they could unite would strengthen their cause. The day passed in a blur of activity. Mia raced through the nearby town, her heart pounding as she spoke to anyone who would listen. "We need to band together," she urged, her voice carrying urgency. "An alien force has attacked, and they won't stop until they take what they want." Some people listened, nodding with concern, while others brushed her off, unable to fathom the reality of her words. But with each person she spoke to, a fire ignited within her, a determination to protect their home. By mid-afternoon, she had gathered a small crowd of townsfolk in the central square. The mood was tense, and the murmurs of doubt echoed around her. "Why should we believe you?" an older man shouted from the back. "We've lived peacefully here for generations. There's no need for panic." "Because the danger is real," Mia responded, her voice rising above the din. "We've seen the Zeltharians firsthand. They came to take our land, our resources, and they won't hesitate to come back." A ripple of anxiety spread through the crowd. Mia seized the moment, pushing forward. "We have to stand together. We can't afford to be divided. If we unite, we can protect our home." The crowd shifted, some faces now reflecting determination. "What do you propose?" a woman asked, stepping forward. "We need to fortify our defenses and create a plan," Mia replied. "Let's form watch groups and prepare for a potential counterattack. If we work together, we can outsmart them." The murmurs grew louder, and a sense of resolve began to take shape. One by one, people began to nod, their fear giving way to courage. "All right, we'll help," the woman said, her voice steady. "But we need to know what we're up against." Mia's heart soared as she looked around at the growing support. "We'll gather all the information we have and prepare for a community meeting tonight. Together, we'll share what we know and strategize." As she finished speaking, she felt a surge of hope. She had ignited a spark, and it was spreading. As dusk approached, Mia returned to the clearing, where she found her friends waiting. They looked tired but determined, and she could see that they had made significant progress. "How did it go?" Ethan asked, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "We've got a crowd," Mia replied, a smile breaking through her earlier fatigue. "People are beginning to listen. They want to unite against the Zeltharians." "Great," Leela exclaimed. "I've rounded up folks from the shelter. They're ready to fight for their homes." "I reached out to the valley," Ethan added. "They're willing to help, but we need a solid plan. The elders want to know what they can do to prepare." Mia nodded, feeling the weight of leadership settle on her shoulders. We'll need to combine our resources and knowledge. If we can fortify our defenses, we might stand a chance. As darkness settled in, more people began to gather in the clearing. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of fear and determination. Mia stood at the forefront, her heart pounding with the weight of responsibility. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling in her mind. "We're facing a threat unlike anything we've seen before. The Zeltharians have attacked, and they won't hesitate to return." A hush fell over the crowd, eyes wide with apprehension. "But we have strength in numbers," Mia continued. "If we unite, we can protect our homes and our families." The crowd murmured in agreement, and Mia felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She shared the details of the battle, her voice rising with passion as she recounted the struggle against the alien invaders. "We need to fortify our homes, set up watch groups, and prepare for a possible counterattack," she said, her heart racing. "This is our land, and we won't let them take it from us." As she spoke, she saw faces light up with determination. The fear that had once clouded their expressions was beginning to shift. "What can we do?" one man called out, stepping forward. Mia felt a rush of gratitude. "We need volunteers to help set up defenses around the perimeter of the town. We'll need lookout points, barricades, and a system for communication. If we work together, we can outsmart them." The crowd erupted into a flurry of activity, people discussing plans and organizing efforts. Mia felt a surge of hope as she watched her friends rally the community. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Under Mia's leadership, the community banded together, creating a network of volunteers committed to defending their home. They transformed the town square into a hub of activity, building barricades and lookout posts and gathering supplies. People shared resources, and families opened their homes to those who needed shelter. Ethan took charge of communication, establishing lookout points throughout the town and coordinating shifts. Leela worked with the shelter residents to gather supplies, from food and water to medical kits. As the days passed, the camaraderie among the townsfolk deepened. They were no longer just individuals. They were a united front, standing together against the unknown. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mia gathered the group to share updates and progress. The air was thick with anticipation and determination. "Thanks to everyone's hard work, we've set up a solid defense," Mia announced, her voice steady. "We've got lookout posts in place, barricades around the perimeter, and a communication system ready to go." The crowd erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by the progress they had made. "But we must remain vigilant," she continued, the gravity of their situation settling over her. "We don't know when the Zeltharians will strike again, but we need to be prepared." Leela stepped forward, her expression resolute. "We've trained the volunteers on how to respond to an attack. Everyone here is ready to defend their homes." "Exactly," Ethan added. "We're stronger together. This community has always faced challenges head-on, and this will be no different." Mia felt a swell of pride as she looked at her friends and the gathered townsfolk. They had come together in the face of adversity, and she knew that their unity would be their greatest strength. As the days turned into weeks, the community held its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. The air was thick with tension, but there was also a palpable sense of hope. Mia took to her role as a leader seriously, holding regular meetings to keep everyone informed and engaged. The townsfolk were ready, their determination unwavering, but a sense of dread lingered in the air. One evening, as she stood at the lookout point, Mia scanned the horizon. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, but a nagging feeling settled in her gut. She knew the Zeltharians would not remain dormant forever. "Hey," Ethan said, joining her at the edge. "You okay?" Mia stared into the dense canopy of trees, her heart pounding with a mix of apprehension and determination. "I know we've prepared, but it feels like we're sitting on a powder keg," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they come back with a bigger force?" Ethan leaned against the rough bark of the tree, considering her words. "We've done everything we can. The town is ready, and you've inspired people to believe they can fight back. That's huge. But what if it's not enough? She asked, her brow furrowed. What if we're just delaying the inevitable? He paused, searching for the right words. Sometimes the fight isn't just about winning the first battle. It's about showing them we're not afraid, that we're willing to stand up for our home. That has to count for something. Mia nodded, though the knot in her stomach remained. She understood the gravity of their situation. The Zeltharians were not just an external threat, but a manifestation of deeper fears: fear of loss, fear of the unknown, and fear of failure. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed through the air, snapping her from her thoughts. "What was that?" she asked, her pulse quickening. "Sounds like thunder," Ethan replied, glancing up at the darkening sky. "But it's too clear for a storm. Let's go check it out." They hurried down the path toward the sound, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. As they reached the edge of the forest, they emerged into a clearing that overlooked a vast expanse of land, a view that had once filled Mia with awe, but now sent chills down her spine. "What is that?" Mia breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the sight. In the distance, the silhouettes of ships loomed against the sky, dark and foreboding. The unmistakable shape of Zeltharian vessels hovered above the horizon, their engines humming ominously. "They're back," Ethan said, his voice low. "They've brought reinforcements." Panic surged through Mia as she turned to him. "We need to warn everyone. They can't be caught off guard." They raced back through the trees, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they burst into the town square, they found it bustling with activity. Volunteers were stationed at various points, preparing for the evening patrols. "Mia! Ethan!" Leela called out, spotting them amidst the crowd. "What's wrong?" "The Zeltharians are back," Mia panted, urgency evident in her voice. "They're in the sky, more ships than before." The crowd fell silent, tension hanging in the air like a thick fog. "We need to act now," Mia continued, her mind racing. "Get everyone to their posts. We need to strengthen our defenses and prepare for a possible attack." Leela moved quickly, rallying volunteers and directing them to their stations. Ethan, fueled by the urgency of the moment, began coordinating communication between the lookout posts. "Let's get everyone armed," he shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. "We'll need whatever we can find: tools, makeshift weapons, anything." The crowd dispersed, adrenaline transforming fear into action. Mia felt her heart race as she grabbed a few makeshift weapons: sharpened sticks, slingshots, anything that could be used for defense. As she worked alongside her friends, the realization of their unity washed over her. They were stronger together, bound by their shared determination to protect their home. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town. Mia stood at the center of the square, rallying everyone around her. "Listen up," she shouted, her voice rising above the murmurs. "We know the Zeltharians are coming for us. They think they can take our home without consequence. But we will show them that we will not back down." The crowd erupted into cheers, their spirits ignited by her words. Mia could feel the energy surging through the group, their resolve solidifying. "Everyone to your posts," she continued, heart racing. "Stay alert, and remember the plan. If you see anything unusual, report it immediately." As the townsfolk dispersed, Mia and her friends took their positions at the lookout post, scanning the sky for any sign of the approaching threat. The tension in the air was palpable, a mix of fear and determination. "Keep an eye on the horizon," Ethan instructed, his gaze fixed on the distant ships. "They might try to flank us." Mia felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. She couldn't shake the feeling that their preparations might not be enough. But she pushed the doubt aside, focusing on the task at hand. As night fell, the sky was illuminated by the eerie glow of the Zeltharian ships. Mia's heart raced as she spotted movement. They're descending," she shouted, pointing toward the ships. A low hum filled the air as the vessels glided closer, casting ominous shadows over the landscape. The townsfolk scrambled to their posts, adrenaline flooding their veins. Stay calm, Mia shouted, trying to keep her voice steady. We can do this. The first Zeltharian ship touched down just outside the perimeter, and a sense of dread washed over Mia. She could see figures moving within the craft, their sleek forms silhouetted against the ship's glow. They're coming, Ethan warned, eyes wide. Get ready. Mia took a deep breath, gripping her makeshift weapon tightly. The ground shook as the hatch of the ship opened, and a ramp descended. The first Zeltharian emerged, their eyes scanning the area, sharp and calculating. Now, Mia yelled, and the townsfolk sprang into action, launching their makeshift weapons in a desperate attempt to defend their home. The Zeltharian soldiers moved with agility, dodging the projectiles and returning fire with energy blasts that illuminated the night. The air crackled with energy, and Mia felt a rush of adrenaline as she fought alongside her friends. Fall back to the barricades, Ethan shouted, directing the group as chaos erupted around them. Hold the line. Mia fought fiercely, her heart pounding as she moved with determination. She could see the fear on the faces of her friends, but they pressed on, fueled by the desire to protect their home. Keep firing, Leela shouted, rallying the others. We won't let them take us. But the Zeltharians were relentless, advancing with a coordinated precision that sent chills down Mia's spine. They seemed to anticipate their moves, responding with brutal efficiency. Regroup, Mia yelled, urgency rising in her voice. We need to strategize. But before she could finish, a loud explosion erupted nearby, sending a shockwave through the air. Mia stumbled, the force knocking her off her feet. Get up, Ethan shouted, reaching out to help her. We have to keep moving. They scrambled to their feet, the chaos of battle surrounding them. The townsfolk were struggling to maintain their defenses, but the Zeltharians pressed on, their determination unwavering. Mia ducked and weaved through the chaos, her heart racing as she moved to rally her friends. She could see Leela and Ethan fighting back to back, their resolve unyielding. Together, Mia shouted, rushing toward them. We can't let them break through. The three of them fought fiercely, using the skills they had honed in their preparations. They dodged energy blasts and retaliated with everything they had, but the Zeltharians were well trained, their movements fluid and precise. Fall back to the main barricade, Leela yelled, her eyes filled with determination. We can't let them breach our defenses. Mia nodded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Let's go. They sprinted back toward the central barricade, where the townsfolk were regrouping. The energy blast illuminated the night, creating a surreal atmosphere that felt both nightmarish and exhilarating. As they reached the barricade, Mia took a moment to assess their surroundings. The Zeltharians were advancing, their numbers overwhelming. But there was a glimmer of hope. The townsfolk were fighting back, united in their determination to defend their home. Everyone, hold your ground, Mia shouted, her voice ringing out above the chaos. We can't let them through. The crowd rallied, their spirits ignited by her words. They formed a line, ready to fight with everything they had. On my count, Ethan yelled, eyes blazing with determination. 3, 2, 1, now. With a fierce battle cry, they launched their projectiles at the advancing Zeltharians. The energy crackled in the air, and the townsfolk stood firm, refusing to back down. Mia felt a surge of adrenaline as she fought alongside her friends, the chaos swirling around them. They were more than just a group of townsfolk. They were a united front, determined to protect their home. But just as the battle seemed to reach a fever pitch, something unexpected happened. The Zeltharians began to falter, their coordinated attack losing momentum. What's happening? Mia shouted, confusion rippling through the ranks. The blinding flash illuminated the battlefield, casting stark shadows across the scene. Mia squinted against the brightness, her heart racing as she struggled to comprehend the sudden shift in the chaos. When the light finally receded, she could see a figure standing tall at the edge of the clearing, bathed in an ethereal glow. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a being radiating power and confidence, with a shimmering aura that seemed to ripple with energy. Mia, look, Ethan shouted, his voice filled with awe. The Zeltharians paused, their advance stalling as they turned their attention to the new arrival. The figure stepped forward, and Mia's heart soared with hope. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "I am Alara," the being announced, her voice resonant and calming. "I come in peace, but I stand against those who seek to conquer without reason." As she spoke, the Zeltharians began to grow restless, their ranks shifting as they prepared to respond. "We don't have time for this," one of the alien soldiers shouted, raising a weapon toward Alara. "Stand down," Alara commanded, her voice carrying an authority that silenced the chaos around them. "You will not harm these people." The tension in the air thickened, and Mia felt a surge of adrenaline course through her. Who was this mysterious figure? Could she truly protect them? "Alara, we're being attacked," Mia shouted, urgency creeping into her voice. "We need your help." Alara turned to Mia, her gaze piercing yet compassionate. "I sensed your struggle and your strength. You have called for aid, and I have come to offer my power. But this battle must be fought together. Your courage has drawn me here." With that, Alara raised her arms, and a wave of light pulsed through the air. Mia felt a warmth envelop her, and she instinctively closed her eyes, drawing on the energy that surged around her. The Zeltharians faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. "What is this?" one of the soldiers shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. "They have summoned a guardian." Mia opened her eyes, feeling a new sense of empowerment. The townsfolk rallied around her and Alara, their spirits lifted by the presence of this mysterious being. "Fight for your home," Alara urged, her voice resonating like a clarion call. "Let your courage ignite the flame of resistance." With renewed determination, Mia raised her makeshift weapon, rallying her friends. "Everyone, stand together. We can't let them take what's ours." The townsfolk surged forward, their fear transformed into strength. They launched their projectiles at the Zeltharians, bolstered by the light that surrounded Alara. As the townsfolk pressed forward, the energy in the air shifted. Alara moved gracefully among them, her presence amplifying their courage and resolve. "Together," she called, her voice echoing through the clearing. "Together, you are stronger than any force that seeks to divide you." Mia felt the connection among her friends deepen as they fought side by side. With Alara's power guiding them, they were no longer just defenders, they were a force to be reckoned with. The Zeltharians, once confident in their numbers, began to waver. The energy blast that had once surged toward them faltered in the face of the townsfolk's newfound unity. "Push them back," Ethan shouted, his voice filled with fervor. "Don't let up." As they fought, the tide began to turn. The Zeltharians, realizing they were losing ground, attempted to regroup. But the townsfolk pressed on, emboldened by Alara's presence. Mia moved fluidly, dodging blasts and retaliating with renewed strength. She could see fear in the eyes of the Zeltharians now. They had underestimated the power of a united community. With every projectile launched, every shout of defiance, Mia felt a sense of empowerment that she had never experienced before. They were fighting not just for their homes, but for each other, for their future. "Keep pushing," Leela yelled, rallying those around her. "We won't let them take our land." The energy surged as the townsfolk pressed on, their numbers growing stronger with each moment. The air crackled with tension, and Mia felt the light surrounding Alara growing more vibrant. "Focus your will," Alara instructed, her voice booming with authority. "Channel your energy into the fight." Mia felt the warmth of Alara's light envelop her, and she focused all her determination into her actions. With each swing of her weapon, she felt a surge of power coursing through her veins, a connection to something greater than herself. As the battle raged on, the Zeltharians began to retreat, their confidence shattered in the face of the townsfolk's unity. Mia watched as they faltered, their once cohesive formation breaking apart. "Keep the pressure on," Ethan shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Don't let them regroup." The townsfolk surged forward, their spirits soaring. They had transformed their fear into a weapon, and the Zeltharians could feel it. But just as victory seemed within reach, A louder roar of engines pierced the air. Mia looked up to see more ships descending from the sky, their ominous silhouettes blotting out the stars. "They're bringing in reinforcements," Leela shouted, her eyes widening in alarm. "We can't hold them off forever." "Stay focused," Ilara called out, her voice powerful and calming. "Your unity is your strength. Do not falter now." Mia felt a wave of determination wash over her as she glanced at her friends. They had fought hard, and they couldn't back down now. "We can't let them break our spirit," she shouted, raising her weapon high. The townsfolk rallied around her, their resolve unyielding. They faced the incoming ships, ready to defend their home with everything they had. As the new Zeltharian forces descended, the atmosphere shifted once again. The first blast erupted, illuminating the night sky. "Hold the line," Ethan yelled, his voice steady amidst the chaos. "We've come too far to back down now." Mia tightened her grip on her weapon, heart racing as she prepared for the oncoming storm. The battle was far from over, but she felt a sense of hope fueled by the unity around her. As the Zeltharian reinforcements landed, Ilara stepped forward, her glowing presence radiating strength. "Let them come," she declared, raising her arms high. "Let your hearts be filled with the light of resistance." Mia felt the energy in the air shift once more, a powerful surge of hope igniting within her. With Ilara leading them, they could face anything that came their way. "Now," Ilara commanded, her voice echoing through the battlefield. "Channel your will into the fight." Mia felt a rush of energy as she followed Ilara's guidance. The townsfolk united, their hearts and minds focused on a common goal. As the Zeltharian forces charged, the townsfolk launched their projectiles with renewed vigor, a unified front against the impending threat. "Together," Mia shouted, her voice a rallying cry. "We are stronger together." The battle erupted with renewed intensity, the townsfolk standing firm against the Zeltharian advance. Ilara's light illuminated their path, fueling their determination as they fought back against the alien invaders. The air crackled with energy as the two forces clashed. Mia felt the power of her community behind her, their voices rising in a symphony of defiance against the Zeltharians. As the fight raged on, Mia focused on each movement, each breath. They were fighting for more than just survival. They were fighting for their future, their homes, and each other. The chaos of battle swirled around them. But within the storm, Mia found a sense of clarity. She looked at her friends, their faces lit with determination, and she felt a deep sense of connection to them all. "Ilara," she shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. "What can we do to turn the tide?" Ilara turned to Mia, her eyes shining with wisdom. "Channel your fears into courage. Believe in the strength of your unity. That is where your true power lies." With those words echoing in her mind, Mia felt a new fire ignite within her. She closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself, and when she opened them again, she saw her friends fighting bravely at her side. "Let's push them back," she yelled, her voice filled with conviction. "We can't let them take our home." With renewed vigor, the townsfolk surged forward, launching their projectiles with unyielding force. The Zeltharians faltered under the onslaught, their confidence shaken, as they faced the united front of the townsfolk. "Together," Ethan shouted, his voice booming through the chaos. "We can do this." As they fought, the energy in the air shifted again, and Mia could feel the tides turning in their favor. The Zeltharians were beginning to retreat, their ranks breaking apart as the townsfolk pressed forward. The Zeltharians began to retreat, their once cohesive lines fracturing under the relentless assault of the townsfolk. Mia felt the surge of hope swell within her as she fought, but it was tempered by the reality of the situation. They had driven the invaders back, but at what cost? "Keep pushing," Ethan shouted, his voice a beacon of determination. "Don't let them regroup." Mia glanced around at her friends Leela, Ethan, and the others, their faces smeared with dirt and determination. They were a motley crew, once united by the simple desire for peace in their home, now forged in the fire of battle. The battlefield was chaotic. The sounds of projectiles flying and energy blasts crackling filled the air. Alara moved fluidly among them, her presence a radiant reminder of their strength. "Remember, it's not just about winning this fight," Alara called, her voice steady amidst the chaos. "It's about what you stand for, the love of your home, your friends, your future." Mia felt her heart race as Alara's words resonated within her. This fight wasn't just a battle, it was a declaration of their existence. They were not just defending their land, they were asserting their right to live freely. As the townsfolk pressed forward, Mia caught sight of a group of Zeltharian soldiers regrouping at the edge of the clearing. "There," she shouted, pointing. "We can't let them escape." "Form a line," Leela commanded, her voice slicing through the noise. "We'll flank them." Mia felt the thrill of adrenaline as they formed a tight line, weapons at the ready. They were a united front, each person standing firm in their resolve. Together, they charged forward, intent on driving the Zeltharians from their home. As they advanced, the Zeltharians scrambled to regroup, their confidence shaken. Mia could see the fear in their eyes. They were no longer the predators, but the hunted. "Let's show them what we're made of," Ethan shouted, rallying the townsfolk as they closed the distance. With a fierce battle cry, Mia and her friends launched their makeshift weapons at the retreating aliens. The projectiles flew through the air, striking true, and Mia felt a surge of exhilaration. They were pushing them back. But then, an explosion erupted nearby, sending shockwaves through the ground. Mia stumbled, thrown off balance, as the air crackled with energy. "Fall back," Leela shouted, urgency in her voice. "Regroup." Mia quickly regained her footing, adrenaline surging through her veins. She glanced back at Alara, who stood tall and unwavering, her light piercing the smoke that enveloped the battlefield. "Stay focused," Alara called, her voice resonating with power. "Let your resolve guide you." The townsfolk gathered around Alara, and Mia felt a deep sense of unity swell within her. They were more than just individuals. They were a collective force fueled by their shared desire to protect their home. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Alara's light enveloping her. "We can't let fear dictate our actions," she said, her voice steady. "We're fighting for our future." With renewed determination, the townsfolk charged forward, reclaiming their ground with each step. The Zeltharians were still formidable, but their fear was palpable, their advance faltering in the face of the townsfolk's unity. As they closed in, Alara raised her arms again. "Channel your fear into strength," she commanded. "Let it propel you forward." Mia felt the power surge through her as she focused her energy. The light surrounding Alara intensified, and with it, the townsfolk felt invigorated, their resolve hardening like steel. They surged forward, a wave of defiance crashing against the remnants of the Zeltharian force. The battle raged on, but Mia felt a shift. They were no longer just defending. They were reclaiming their home. "Keep fighting," Ethan urged, his voice filled with fire. "This is our home." Mia launched her projectiles with precision, her heart racing as she watched the Zeltharians falter. They were retreating, their formations breaking apart as the townsfolk pressed on. But just when victory seemed within reach, a louder roar of engines pierced the night, sending a chill down Mia's spine. More Zeltharian ships descended from the sky, their ominous silhouettes blotting out the stars once again. "More reinforcements," Leela shouted, fear creeping into her voice. "Stay focused," Alara commanded, her voice ringing clear over the din. "We must not let fear overwhelm us." Mia felt a surge of panic, but Alara's words steadied her. They had faced overwhelming odds before. They could do it again. As the new ships landed, the Zeltharians poured out in droves, their numbers increasing exponentially. The townsfolk braced themselves, weapons at the ready. "Hold the line," Ethan shouted, positioning himself at the forefront. "We've come too far to back down now." Mia felt her heart race as the Zeltharians charged. This was it. They were facing the true might of their enemy. But the townsfolk stood firm, united in their resolve. The first blast erupted as the two forces clashed once more, energy crackling in the air. Mia fought fiercely, her heart pounding as she dodged blasts and retaliated with everything she had. "Ilara," she yelled, desperation creeping into her voice. "What can we do?" "Trust in your strength," Ilara replied, her voice unwavering. "Let your unity guide you." With those words echoing in her mind, Mia pushed forward, the energy of the townsfolk bolstering her spirit. They were not alone, they had each other, and that was their greatest strength. "Together," Mia shouted, rallying her friends. "We can do this." The townsfolk surged forward, launching their projectiles with renewed fervor. The Zeltharians faltered again, confusion rippling through their ranks as they faced the unyielding spirit of the defenders. "Don't give up," Leela yelled, her voice fierce and unwavering. "This is our land." Mia felt a surge of hope as they pressed on, the Zeltharians losing ground once more. But as they fought, she knew they couldn't let their guard down. The true challenge was still ahead. The battlefield became a cacophony of sound, energy blasts exploding in the night air. The townsfolk fought valiantly, but the Zeltharians were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Mia ducked and weaved, her heart racing as she fought alongside her friends. They were facing their darkest hour, but amidst the chaos, she felt a flicker of hope. "Ilara, what do we do?" she shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. "Focus on your unity," Ilara called back, her radiant presence cutting through the chaos. "You are stronger together than any force that seeks to divide you." With those words echoing in her mind, Mia tightened her grip on her weapon. They couldn't falter now, they had to fight for their home and each other. "Together," Mia shouted, rallying her friends. "Let's show them what we're made of." With renewed determination, the townsfolk surged forward, pushing against the Zeltharian lines. The energy in the air shifted, crackling with the tension of the battle. Mia felt a surge of energy flow through her as she fought, each movement guided by the strength of her friends. They were not just fighting for their homes, they were fighting for their futures, for the bonds they had forged. As they pressed on, the Zeltharians began to falter once more, their formations breaking under the relentless pressure. Mia could see the fear in their eyes, their confidence shaken by the unity of the townsfolk. "Don't let up," Ethan shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "We can't give them a chance to regroup." With each charge, the townsfolk pushed back against the Zeltharians, their spirits soaring higher with each victory. Mia felt exhilarated, a sense of purpose guiding her movements as they fought to reclaim their home. But the battle was far from over. As the Zeltharians regrouped, they unleashed a barrage of energy blasts that sent shockwaves through the ground. "Fall back," Leela shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Regroup at the barricades." Mia turned, her heart pounding as they fell back to the central barricade. She could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the fight pressing down on her. "Hold your ground," Ilara commanded, her voice steady and resolute. "This is your moment. You have fought valiantly. Now let your unity shine." Mia felt the warmth of Ilara's light surrounding her, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "We can do this," she shouted, rallying her friends as they prepared for the final clash. As the Zeltharians advanced, the townsfolk stood firm, weapons at the ready. They had come too far to back down now. They were determined to protect their home at all costs. "Together," Mia called out, her voice ringing clear. "Let's show them what we're made of." The clash of energy and the cries of battle filled the air as Mia and her friends stood resolute at the barricade, the weight of their shared struggle pressing down upon them. The Zeltharians had regrouped, their numbers overwhelming, but the townsfolk refused to cower. They were defenders now, forged in the fires of adversity. "Hold the line," Ethan shouted, his voice filled with urgency as he steadied himself beside Mia. "We can't let them breach our defenses." Mia tightened her grip on her makeshift weapon, determination coursing through her veins. They were fighting for their home, for their lives, and for each other. The very air crackled with energy, a palpable tension that electrified the atmosphere. As the Zeltharians advanced, their formation was menacing, their alien technology gleaming under the moonlight. But behind Mia stood the heart of their community, friends and allies who had come together against a common foe. "Remember why we're fighting," Leela shouted, her eyes blazing with determination. "For our families, for our future." Mia felt a swell of pride and courage as the townsfolk rallied around Leela's words. They were more than just individuals. They were a united force, and together they could withstand anything. Alara moved gracefully among them, her radiant light guiding the townsfolk. "Focus on your strengths," she urged, her voice a calming presence amidst the chaos. "Use what you have. Your unity is your most powerful weapon." Mia took a deep breath, glancing around at her friends. "We need a plan," she said, her voice steady. "If we can create a diversion, we might be able to split their forces." Ethan nodded, determination gleaming in his eyes. "I can take a few of us to flank them from the side. We'll draw their fire while you hold the line here." "I'll go with you," Leela added, her voice resolute. "We need to make sure they don't see it coming." Mia felt a mixture of fear and pride. "Be careful," she warned, her heart racing at the thought of them separating. "We need you back here." Elara's presence shone brighter as she sensed the weight of their decision. "Trust in each other," she said. "You are stronger together, no matter the distance." With a nod of understanding, Mia watched as Ethan and Leela moved to gather a small group of brave townsfolk. They exchanged glances, an unspoken bond of trust passing between them. "Ready," Ethan called, his voice steady. "Let's do this," Leela shouted, her spirit infectious. As they moved out to flank the Zeltharian forces, Mia turned her attention back to the barricade. The remaining townsfolk positioned themselves, hearts pounding with anticipation. The Zeltharians advanced, their weapons poised for battle. The townsfolk braced themselves, tension coiling in the air like a tightly wound spring. "Now," Mia shouted, raising her weapon high. "Stand together." As the Zeltharians charged, Mia and the townsfolk unleashed their projectiles in a unified wave. The blasts soared through the air, striking true and sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. The Zeltharians stumbled, their advance faltering as they regrouped. But Mia knew this was just the beginning. They needed to maintain their momentum. "Keep firing," she urged, her voice fierce. "We can't let up." As the townsfolk pressed on, Mia felt the power of their unity surge through her. They were fighting for more than just survival. They were fighting for their way of life. "Ethan, Leela, now!" she shouted, hoping her friends were in position to execute their plan. In the distance, she caught a glimpse of Ethan and Leela moving stealthily through the underbrush, their silhouettes barely visible against the chaos of the battle. She could see them preparing to flank the Zeltharians from the side, and her heart raced with anticipation. Ethan signaled to Leela and the group, and they moved into position, ready to strike. Mia's heart pounded as she watched, knowing that their success depended on timing and precision. "On my mark," Ethan whispered, eyes fixed on the advancing Zeltharians. As the enemy drew closer, Mia's pulse quickened. "Now!" Ethan shouted, leaping into action alongside Leela and their small group. The diversion was perfect. The townsfolk at the barricade focused their fire on the approaching Zeltharians, drawing their attention while Ethan and Leela struck from the side. Mia felt a rush of adrenaline as she saw the Zeltharians momentarily disoriented, their ranks breaking as they struggled to respond to the surprise attack. "Push forward," she yelled, rallying the defenders. "Don't let them regroup." The townsfolk surged forward, the power of their unity emboldening them. They were no longer just defenders. They were warriors, fighting for their home with every ounce of strength they possessed. But the Zeltharians were not easily defeated. They quickly adapted, regrouping and unleashing a counterattack that sent energy blasts flying toward both the barricade and Ethan's flanking group. "Fall back," Mia shouted, realizing the danger. "Regroup." The townsfolk at the barricade moved to protect each other, ducking behind cover as energy blast exploded nearby. Mia felt her heart race as she searched for her friends, fear clawing at her insides. "Ethan, Leela," she called, her voice strained with worry. Through the chaos, she spotted Ethan, ducking behind a fallen tree. "We're okay," he shouted back, determination etched on his face. But we need to move. Back to the barricade, Mia yelled, rallying the townsfolk. Fall back and regroup. As the townsfolk moved, Mia caught sight of Leela, her face set with determination. We can't let them take our home, Leela shouted, her spirit igniting the fires of defiance within Mia. With a surge of courage, Mia pushed forward, dodging energy blasts as she moved toward her friends. Stay together, she called out. We can't let them isolate us. As they regrouped, Mia felt the energy in the air shift. The townsfolk formed a tight circle, weapons poised for battle, ready to defend their home with everything they had. Focus, Ilara urged, her voice resonating with power. Your unity will be your strength. With those words, Mia felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were standing together, side by side, fighting for their homes and their future. On my mark, Mia shouted, rallying her friends as the Zeltharians advanced once more. We're going to push them back. The townsfolk nodded, determination gleaming in their eyes. They had fought through fear and uncertainty. Now they were ready to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Now, Mia shouted, launching a volley of projectiles at the advancing Zeltharians. The townsfolk followed suit, a wave of defiance crashing against the enemy ranks. The Zeltharians faltered, their formations breaking as they faced the combined might of the townsfolk. Mia could see the fear in their eyes, their confidence shaken as they struggled to respond. Keep pushing, Ethan shouted, his voice filled with fire. We can't let them take our home. The energy crackled in the air, and Mia felt the tide shifting in their favor. The townsfolk pressed forward, their spirits soaring as they fought for their future. As the Zeltharians reeled from the onslaught, Mia seized the moment. Let's finish this, she yelled, rallying her friends. With a fierce battle cry, the townsfolk surged forward, launching projectiles and charging into the fray. The air crackled with energy, and the battlefield erupted into chaos once more. Mia fought with every ounce of strength, her heart racing as she moved fluidly among her friends. They were a united front, and together they were stronger than any individual could ever be. But the Zeltharians were regrouping, their determination fierce. As they pressed forward, energy blasts erupted all around them, and Mia felt the heat of battle surging around her. Stay focused, Ilara called, her voice steady and powerful. Remember what you stand for. Mia felt a renewed sense of purpose as she fought. They were not just defending their land, they were standing for their right to exist, to live freely without fear. Together, she shouted, her voice ringing clear over the chaos. Let's push them back. The townsfolk rallied around her, their spirits unyielding as they fought back against the Zeltharians. They were a force of nature, unstoppable in their determination to protect their home. As the battle raged on, Mia could feel the momentum shifting. The Zeltharians were losing ground, their formations breaking apart under the weight of the townsfolk's united front. Don't let up, Ethan shouted, his voice filled with urgency. This is our moment. With every blast, every swing of her weapon, Mia felt the power of their unity propel her forward. They had come too far to back down now. They were fighting for their lives. Keep pushing, Leela urged, her voice fierce and unwavering. This is our home. The roar of battle echoed around Mia as she surged forward alongside her friends, their voices a harmonious rallying cry against the tide of the Zeltharians. The fierce determination in their hearts became a collective force, propelling them through the chaos of the battlefield. The air was thick with tension, but there was an undeniable shift, a spark of hope igniting within them. Together, Mia shouted, her voice slicing through the din. This is our moment. The townsfolk charged forward, their weapons glinting in the fading light as they pressed against the wavering lines of the Zeltharian soldiers. Mia could see the fear in their eyes, the cracks beginning to show in their once unstoppable formation. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their homes and families. As the Zeltharians stumbled, caught off guard by the ferocity of the townsfolk's resolve, Mia seized the opportunity. She ducked beneath an energy blast that zipped past her head and retaliated with a well-aimed projectile that struck true, sending an enemy soldier reeling. Keep it up, Ethan shouted, his voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. We're breaking through. Leela moved like a whirlwind, her energy palpable as she dispatched another Zeltharian with a deft swing of her weapon. We can't let them regroup, she called, her spirit infectious. Push forward. Mia fought alongside them, her heart pounding with adrenaline. They were more than just defenders now. They were warriors, united in their defiance against a common enemy. The once daunting battlefield had transformed into a testament to their strength and resilience. Focus on the weak points, Elara urged, her presence a guiding light as she moved gracefully among them. We can win this. Mia locked eyes with Elara, feeling a surge of energy wash over her. They were not just fighting for survival, they were reclaiming their right to live freely. The bond they shared as a community became a shield against the darkness threatening to engulf them. As the townsfolk pressed forward, they found their footing, inching closer to the heart of the Zeltharian forces. The once unyielding enemy began to falter, their confidence shaken by the fierce resistance they faced. Don't let up, Ethan shouted again, rallying the townsfolk. We can't give them a chance to recover. Mia felt a swell of pride as she fought alongside her friends. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, amplifying her every move. The cries of their people, the laughter of children, and the memories of their shared lives fueled her resolve. Together, Mia shouted, her voice a clarion call as they surged forward, breaking through the lines of the Zeltharians. She could see their soldiers retreating, the glint of fear replacing their earlier bravado. Now, Leela yelled, signaling a concentrated attack. We can end this. With a coordinated effort, the townsfolk unleashed a barrage of projectiles, targeting the Zeltharians with precision. Energy blast erupted, lighting up the night sky as the tide of battle began to turn in their favor. But just as victory seemed within reach, a loud rumble filled the air, shaking the ground beneath them. From the depths of the shadows, a colossal Zeltharian war machine emerged, towering over the battlefield. Its mechanical limbs clanked ominously, casting a long shadow over the townsfolk. Fall back, Elara shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. Regroup. Mia's heart sank as she realized the implications of the war machine's presence. We have to stop it, she yelled, dread coiling in her stomach. If it gets through, we're done for. Ethan met her gaze, determination hardening his features. We need a plan. We can't face that thing head-on. Leela nodded, her expression serious. We need to distract it while a few of us find a way to disable it. Mia took a deep breath, steeling herself against the overwhelming odds. I'll help lead the distraction, she said, her voice firm. We can draw its fire while you figure out how to bring it down. Are you sure? Ethan asked, concern flickering in his eyes. We don't have a choice, Mia replied, determination washing over her. This is our home, and we can't let it fall. As the townsfolk gathered around, Mia shared her plan. We'll create a diversion, she explained. If we can draw its attention away from the others, we might just buy enough time for someone to find a weak spot. Ethan nodded, his resolve unwavering. We'll need to be quick and coordinated. This thing won't hesitate to take us out. Leela clapped her hands together, her spirit contagious. Then let's do this, for our home. With their plan set, the townsfolk took their positions, ready to implement their distraction. Mia felt a surge of adrenaline as she led the charge, determination coursing through her veins. Now, she shouted, her voice ringing clear as they launched their projectiles at the war machine. The blast struck the metal surface, creating sparks and reverberating echoes that echoed through the battlefield. Over here, Mia yelled, waving her arms to draw its attention. The machine turned, its sensors locking onto the source of the commotion. Keep it coming, Ethan called, his voice filled with urgency. Don't let up. The townsfolk unleashed another volley of projectiles, striking the war machine and creating a cacophony of noise that filled the air. The ground shook beneath them as the machine retaliated, firing energy blasts in their direction. Stay on your toes, Leela shouted, her voice fierce. We need to keep it distracted. Mia ducked and weaved, narrowly avoiding an energy blast that sizzled past her. She could feel the heat of the explosion as she launched another projectile, her heart racing with every shot. Meanwhile, a small group of townsfolk, including Ethan and Leela, began their search for a way to disable the war machine. They moved with urgency, their eyes scanning for any vulnerabilities. "Look for a control panel," Ethan shouted as they darted through the chaos, staying low to avoid the machine's fire. "If we can access it, we might be able to shut it down." Leela nodded, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "There has to be a way in somewhere we can access the inner workings." As they moved, Mia could see the war machine firing relentlessly, its energy blast ripping through the ground. The townsfolk were giving everything they had to keep it distracted, but the danger was palpable. "Stay focused," Mia yelled to her friends as they regrouped. "We can't let it overpower us." The machine retaliated with renewed fury, firing blasts indiscriminately as it attempted to regain control of the battlefield. The townsfolk felt the heat of the blast as they ducked for cover, their resolve unwavering. In the midst of the chaos, Leela spotted a panel on the side of the machine. "There," she shouted, pointing. "That's our way in." Ethan nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We need to get there. Mia, can you keep it distracted?" "Absolutely," Mia replied, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she refused to back down. With renewed determination, Mia charged toward the war machine, drawing its fire as she dodged and weaved between blasts. "Over here," she yelled, her voice ringing clear as she taunted the massive machine. The Zeltharian war machine focused its attention on Mia, firing blasts that sent shockwaves through the ground. But she was quick, her movements fueled by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Now!" Leela shouted, signaling Ethan as they raced toward the panel. Mia could see her friends approaching the machine, their determination unwavering. "You can do this," she yelled, her voice filled with encouragement. As Ethan and Leela reached the panel, they began to work frantically, their hands moving quickly as they searched for a way to disable the machine. The war machine turned its focus back to Mia, firing energy blasts that narrowly missed her. "Just a little longer," Ethan shouted, his voice strained with urgency. Mia felt a surge of fear as the blasts grew closer. "You have to hurry," she urged, her heart racing. The pressure was mounting, and she could feel the weight of the battle bearing down on her. "Almost there," Leela called, her voice steady even as chaos erupted around them. Mia continued to draw the machine's fire, narrowly avoiding each blast as she focused on the task at hand. "You can do it," she shouted, her spirit unwavering. Then, a loud clanking noise echoed through the air as the machine began to malfunction, the panel sparking under Leela's deft hands. "Got it," Leela yelled, her voice filled with triumph. Mia felt a rush of hope. "Now, shut it down." With a final push, Leela and Ethan hit a series of switches, and the war machine shuddered violently, its energy field flickering as it lost power. "No!" a Zeltharian soldier yelled in desperation, witnessing their defeat. The ground trembled beneath Mia's feet as the war machine shuddered violently, its energy field flickering like a dying star. A cacophony of alarms blared as the massive construct began to collapse in on itself, a testament to the townsfolk's courage and determination. The air was thick with tension, but amidst the chaos, a spark of hope ignited. "Keep pushing," Mia shouted, rallying the townsfolk around her. "We can't let them regroup." As the war machine sputtered and whirred, a wave of uncertainty rippled through the remaining Zeltharian forces. The once confident aliens were now glancing at one another, fear etching itself across their faces. Mia seized the moment, urging her friends to take advantage of the confusion. "Now is our chance," Leela yelled, her voice ringing out above the tumult. "Let's finish this." With a collective roar, the townsfolk surged forward, their weapons raised high. They were no longer merely defending their home, they were reclaiming it. The fire in their hearts blazed brighter than ever, illuminating the battlefield with a fierce resolve. The Zeltharians began to fall back, their formations breaking apart as they retreated from the relentless assault. Mia felt a surge of adrenaline as they pressed forward, refusing to let the enemy escape. "Don't let them get away," Ethan shouted, his eyes fierce with determination. "We need to end this now." Mia pushed herself harder, her heart pounding in her chest. They were so close to victory, but she could sense that the Zeltharians were not done yet. They would fight until the very end. As the townsfolk engaged in close combat, the Zeltharians fought back with desperation. Energy blasts lit up the night sky, and the sound of metal clashing echoed through the air. But the resolve of the townsfolk was unbreakable, forged in the fires of their shared struggle. "Together," Mia called, urging her friends to form a tighter front. "We can do this." Alara moved among them, her presence a guiding light. "Stay unified," she encouraged, her voice soothing amidst the chaos. "Your strength lies in your togetherness." With renewed vigor, the townsfolk fought as one, a tidal wave of defiance crashing against the Zeltharian forces. Mia could see the fear in their eyes, the realization that their reign of terror was coming to an end. But just as victory seemed assured, a chilling voice rang out over the battlefield, cutting through the chaos like a knife. "Enough." A tall figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in a dark robe that billowed behind him like smoke. The Zeltharian general stepped forward, his piercing gaze sweeping across the battlefield, assessing the situation with an unsettling calm. Mia's heart sank. "Who is that?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. "That's the commander," Ethan replied, his voice tight with tension. "He's dangerous." The townsfolk hesitated, the momentum of their victory faltering as they faced the Zeltharian general. His presence was magnetic, demanding attention and respect. He raised a hand, silencing the battlefield with an unspoken command. "Do you think you can defeat us?" the general called, his voice smooth and chilling. "You are nothing but insects, squirming in the light of a dying sun." Mia clenched her jaw, anger flaring within her. "We are not insects," she shouted back. "We are fighting for our home." A smirk crept across the general's face. "Your bravery is commendable, but futile. You will fall, just like the others before you." As the general spoke, the remaining Zeltharian soldiers began to regroup behind him, their fear giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. Mia could feel the tide shifting once more, and she knew they had to act quickly. "Don't let him intimidate you," Leela shouted, her voice fierce and unwavering. "We've come too far to back down now." Mia's heart raced as she locked eyes with Ethan. "We need to distract him," she said, urgency lacing her words. "If we can draw his attention, maybe we can take out the remaining forces." Ethan nodded, determination etched on his face. "I'll create a diversion. You and Leela take the fight to him." "Be careful," Mia warned, her heart heavy with worry. "I will," he promised, a glint of defiance in his eyes. As Ethan moved to execute the plan, Mia and Leela stepped forward, ready to confront the general. The air crackled with tension, the battlefield holding its breath as the moment of confrontation approached. "Do you truly believe you can win?" the general asked, a mocking tone lacing his words. "You are outmatched." Mia took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage she had. "We fight for our homes and our people," she declared. "That is a power you cannot understand." The general chuckled darkly. "Power is what I know best. You think your courage can stand against my might?" Leela stepped beside Mia, her eyes fierce. "We don't just rely on courage. We fight together, and together we are strong." With that declaration, the ground beneath them seemed to shift, the energy of their unity resonating through the air. Mia felt it, a pulse of determination that reverberated through her very core. "You want to fight?" the general sneered. "Very well." With a swift motion, the general raised his hand, summoning energy to him like a dark storm. Mia felt a wave of dread wash over her, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the battle at hand. "Now," she shouted, launching herself toward the general as Leela followed suit. The two charged forward, their weapons at the ready, determined to break through the intimidating presence before them. The general unleashed a powerful blast of energy, and Mia barely managed to dodge it, the force of it singeing the air around her. "You're faster than I expected," he said, his tone more serious now. "But speed won't save you." Leela swung her weapon at the general, but he parried with a swift motion, sending her stumbling back. "Is that all you've got?" he taunted, a dark grin spreading across his face. Mia felt the weight of fear creeping in, but she pushed it away. "We can't give up," she shouted, rallying her resolve. "We fight for each other." As if in response to her words, Ethan reappeared, launching projectiles at the general to distract him. "Now, Mia," he yelled, urgency fueling his voice. Mia seized the opportunity, charging forward. "We won't back down," she cried, swinging her weapon with all her might. The general blocked her strike, but was forced back by the sheer force of their unity. "Impressive," he acknowledged, his expression shifting. "But you cannot hope to defeat me." With renewed determination, Mia and Leela coordinated their attacks. They danced around the general, striking in unison, pushing him back as Ethan continued to launch projectiles from the side. "Keep moving," Leela shouted, her voice fierce. "We can't give him a chance to regroup." The general retaliated, unleashing blasts of energy that illuminated the battlefield, but the townsfolk pressed forward, their spirits unyielding. Mia could feel the energy of their unity flowing through her, amplifying her every move. "Don't falter," Mia yelled, rallying her friends. "We are stronger together." As they continued their assault, the Zeltharians behind the general began to hesitate, witnessing the power of the townsfolk. The general's confidence faltered, and he glared at Mia and her friends with a newfound urgency. "You think this is a game?" he growled, summoning more energy. "You are nothing." Mia's heart raced, but she refused to back down. "We are everything," she shouted back, feeling the strength of her friends beside her. With a final surge of determination, the townsfolk launched a combined attack, a storm of projectiles and energy striking the general in unison. The air crackled with power, and Mia felt the impact resonate through her bones. The general staggered, the energy field flickering around him. "No," he roared, his voice filled with rage. "You will pay for this insolence." But Mia could see the cracks forming in his facade. The Zeltharian soldiers were beginning to waver, the tide of battle shifting in favor of the townsfolk. "Now, while he's weakened," Ethan shouted, urgency lacing his words. The townsfolk surged forward, their spirits unyielding. Mia felt a rush of adrenaline as they pressed the attack, striking the general with renewed vigor. The energy of their unity became an unstoppable force, crashing against the dark figure before them. With a final roar, the general unleashed a wave of energy, but Mia and her friends were ready. They dodged and weaved, countering his attack with everything they had. "Together," Mia shouted, feeling the power of their unity surge through her. "For our home." The battlefield erupted in chaos as the general, overwhelmed by the united front of the townsfolk, staggered back, momentarily disoriented. The energy that had surrounded him flickered and sputtered like a dying flame, revealing the vulnerability that lay beneath his fierce exterior. "Now's our chance," Leela shouted, her voice ringing with urgency. "We can end this." Mia felt a rush of adrenaline as she charged forward alongside her friends, determination etched on her face. They had fought too hard, sacrificed too much, to let this moment slip through their fingers. The sight of the general faltering fueled their resolve, and they pressed on with everything they had. The general snarled, regaining his footing and narrowing his eyes at the townsfolk. "You think you've won?" he hissed, a sneer twisting his features. "This is far from over." His voice resonated with a deep, unnatural authority, causing the remaining Zeltharians to rally behind him, their fear momentarily quelled. Mia felt a flicker of doubt, but she quickly extinguished it, recalling the strength they had found in one another. "Stay focused," Ethan yelled, taking a commanding stance. "We've come too far to let him intimidate us." Mia nodded, her heart racing. They had been fighting for their homes, their families, and for each other. This was a battle not just for survival, but for their very way of life. As the Zeltharians surged forward, Mia and her friends held their ground, forming a solid line. The townsfolk around them rallied, drawing strength from one another as they faced the impending wave of enemies. "Remember what we're fighting for," Ilara shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "We fight for our families, our future." Mia felt the fire in her chest grow hotter, her spirit igniting with determination. They were not just individuals. They were a community bound by their shared love for their home. As the first wave of Zeltharians crashed against them, Mia raised her weapon high, leading the charge. "For our home," she cried, and her friends echoed her rallying cry, their voices a chorus of defiance. The battle surged and swirled around them, energy blasts illuminating the night sky as the two sides clashed. Mia fought with every ounce of strength she had, her movements fueled by a blend of adrenaline and purpose. "Stay together," she shouted to her friends as they weaved through the chaos, dodging energy blasts and countering the attacks with their own. "Watch out!" Leela yelled, pulling Mia out of the path of a powerful energy blast just in time. "Keep your guard up." Mia nodded, her heart racing as she regained her footing. They could not afford to falter now. They were on the brink of victory. But the general was not finished. He gathered his remaining forces and unleashed a wave of energy that rippled through the battlefield, creating a shockwave that knocked Mia and her friends off their feet. "Do you see now?" the general taunted, his voice dripping with malice. "You are nothing. You cannot win against the might of the Zeltharians." Mia gritted her teeth, the weight of despair trying to creep in. But she pushed it back, focusing on her friends, the faces of her community around her. They had come too far to let this end in defeat. "Get up," Ethan shouted, scrambling to his feet and extending a hand to Mia. "We can't let him get to us." Mia took his hand, pulling herself up as Leela joined them. "We've fought for this," she yelled, defiance filling her voice. "We won't back down now." As the general advanced, a palpable tension filled the air. The townsfolk began to rally around Mia, drawn in by her unwavering spirit. They stood together, a wall of resolve against the impending storm. "Together," Mia shouted, her voice a beacon of hope. "We fight as one." The townsfolk echoed her words, their voices rising in a unified chorus that drowned out the chaos of battle. In that moment, the tide began to shift once more. With renewed energy, they surged forward, a collective force that struck fear into the hearts of the Zeltharian soldiers. Mia felt the strength of her friends beside her, the power of their unity propelling her forward. The general's confidence wavered as he faced the onslaught. He raised his hand to summon energy, but Mia was faster. With a primal scream, she charged at him, her weapon aimed at the heart of his arrogance. "Now," she yelled, signaling to her friends. "For our home." "No," the general shouted, panic lacing his voice. "You cannot do this." But the townsfolk would not be swayed. They pressed the attack, refusing to relent in their pursuit of victory. The general staggered, his composure faltering as the collective will of the townsfolk bore down on him. With one final push, Mia and her friends channeled their energy into a decisive strike. The air around them crackled with power as they unleashed everything they had. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the energy blast soared toward the general, illuminating the battlefield in blinding light. "No!" he roared, raising his hands in a futile attempt to shield himself. The impact of the combined force struck him squarely, a brilliant explosion of light that consumed the darkness surrounding them. As the dust settled, a profound silence fell over the battlefield. Mia stood, breathless, her heart pounding in her chest as she scanned the scene before her. The Zeltharian general lay defeated, his once mighty presence reduced to a flicker of energy that dissipated into the night. The remaining Zeltharian soldiers hesitated, their resolve crumbling in the face of their leader's defeat. One by one, they dropped their weapons, fear replacing their earlier bravado. "We did it," Leela exclaimed, disbelief and joy mingling in her voice. Ethan grinned, his eyes shining with triumph. "We fought together. We showed them what we're made of." Mia felt a wave of relief wash over her as she turned to her friends, the weight of the battle lifting from her shoulders. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. But their victory was not without cost. Mia glanced around the battlefield, the remnants of the struggle laid bare. Many townsfolk lay injured, and the signs of the battle were evident everywhere. The price of their freedom had been high, but it was a price they were willing to pay. As dawn broke on the horizon, the first light of day illuminated the battlefield, casting a warm glow over the scene. The townsfolk began to gather, supporting one another, sharing in the triumph of their hard-fought victory. Mia felt a sense of hope blooming within her, the light of a new day symbolizing the dawn of a new era. They had fought for their homes and had prevailed, but the battle was just the beginning. "We need to help those who are injured," Mia said, her voice steady and resolute. "We can't leave anyone behind." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. We've come this far together. We need to ensure everyone is safe." Leela stepped forward, her spirit unyielding. "We'll work together. We can heal our community, just like we fought for it." As they moved among their friends and neighbors, offering support and care, Mia felt the bond of their community grow stronger. They had faced darkness together and emerged victorious, and now it was time to rebuild. With the sun rising higher, illuminating the remnants of the battlefield, Mia and her friends worked tirelessly, tending to the injured and offering comfort to those in need. Laughter mingled with tears as they shared stories of bravery and resilience, each tale a reminder of the strength they had found in one another. As the day wore on, the townsfolk began to regroup, their spirits bolstered by the knowledge that they had reclaimed their home. Mia could see the determination in their eyes, the fire of hope igniting anew as they planned for the future. "We'll rebuild," Elara said, her voice filled with conviction. "We'll make our home stronger than ever." Mia nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "Together, we can overcome anything." As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the horizon, Mia stood with her friends, looking out at the remnants of the battle and the community they had fought so hard to protect. "This is just the beginning," she said softly, her voice filled with hope. "We'll face whatever comes next, together." With the promise of a brighter future ahead, the townsfolk began to rally around one another, ready to forge a new path in the light of their shared victory. As night fell over the village, the air buzzed with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The streets, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now vibrated with a renewed sense of purpose. Mia stood at the heart of the village, surrounded by her friends and neighbors, feeling the weight of the day's events settle on her shoulders. "Gather around," Elara called, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We need to discuss what comes next." Mia smiled at her friends, grateful for their unwavering spirit. "Exactly. We need to split into teams. Some can focus on healing and supporting the injured, while others can begin repairing the damage. With the plan set in motion, the townsfolk sprang into action. Mia watched as groups formed, people moving with purpose. Some gathered supplies, while others went door to door, checking on their neighbors and offering assistance. "Let's go check on the clinic," Mia suggested to Ethan and Leela, who nodded in agreement. They made their way through the village, the remnants of the battle still evident. Shattered buildings and debris littered the streets, but the sight of people working together to rebuild filled Mia with hope. As they approached the clinic, the air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and herbs. Inside, the atmosphere was buzzing with activity. Healers and volunteers worked tirelessly, tending to the injured and offering comfort. Mia felt a surge of gratitude for everyone who had stepped up in this moment of need. "Thank you for everything you're doing," Mia said to one of the healers, an older woman with kind eyes. "It means so much to us." The healer smiled softly, her hands busy bandaging a wounded soldier. "We are all in this together, dear. This is our home, and we will do whatever it takes to protect it." As Mia moved among the injured, she offered her support wherever she could. She helped distribute water, carried supplies, and listened to stories of bravery and loss. Each tale reinforced the bond between the townsfolk, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences that would forever connect them. "Have you seen Greg?" Leela asked, her voice laced with concern. "He was at the front line during the battle." Mia's heart sank. "I haven't. Let's look for him." They scanned the room, and as they moved deeper into the clinic, they found Greg lying on a cot, bandaged but awake. Relief flooded Mia as she rushed to his side. "Greg," she exclaimed, kneeling beside him. "You scared us. How are you feeling?" He managed a weak smile. "I'll live. Just a few bruises and cuts. But I saw some action out there," he said, pride flickering in his eyes. "We really showed them what we're made of." "You did," Leela chimed in, her voice filled with warmth. "You fought bravely." Greg winced slightly as he shifted. "We all did. But we need to keep fighting, even after today. The Zeltharians won't give up easily." Mia nodded, determination surging through her. "You're right. We need to prepare for anything." As night deepened, the clinic continued to buzz with activity. The townsfolk shared stories and reassured one another, the bonds of community strengthening with each passing hour. But amidst the warmth of camaraderie, the weight of the future loomed. "Gather around," Ilara's voice rang out once more, calling everyone's attention. "We need to talk about our next steps. The general's defeat was a major victory, but it's only the beginning." Mia stood at the forefront, her heart pounding with anticipation. She could feel the energy in the air, a mix of hope and apprehension. The townsfolk had come together, and they were ready to forge a path forward. "We need to assess the Zeltharian threat," Ilara continued, her gaze steady. "They will regroup and retaliate if we don't prepare ourselves. We can't allow ourselves to be caught off guard again." "I can scout the perimeter," Ethan offered, his voice confident. "I'll take a few others with me. We need to know what we're up against." "Good idea," Mia replied, feeling a rush of gratitude for Ethan's bravery. "We also need to fortify our defenses. If they try to come back, we need to be ready." The discussion continued, ideas flowing as the townsfolk brainstormed strategies to strengthen their community. Some proposed building barriers around the village, while others suggested creating lookout posts to monitor any approaching threats. Mia felt a sense of unity as they collaborated, each voice contributing to the larger goal. The energy in the room was palpable, and she could see the resolve etched on every face. They were determined to protect their home, no matter the cost. After a long night of planning, the townsfolk finally began to disperse, fatigue settling in as the weight of the day took its toll. But Mia could see the fire still burning in their eyes. They were ready to face whatever came next. As the moon cast a gentle glow over the village, Mia found herself standing outside the clinic, staring up at the stars. The world felt different now, a quiet calm replacing the chaos of the battle. But in her heart, she knew that this peace was fragile. "Hey," Leela said, joining her outside. "You okay?" Mia sighed, leaning against the cool wall of the clinic. I'm just thinking about everything that's happened. We've come so far, but there's still so much to do. Leela nodded, her expression serious. We've built something incredible here. We can't let it be taken away from us again. I know, Mia replied, feeling a sense of camaraderie swell within her. We'll keep fighting, for each other and for our home. As dawn approached, Mia and her friends gathered with the rest of the townsfolk, ready to put their plans into action. The morning air was crisp, the light of the sun breaking through the horizon, signaling a new day filled with possibilities. Today, we strengthen our home, Elara declared, her voice ringing with authority. We stand united against any threat. Together, we will rebuild, fortify, and prepare for whatever comes next. The townsfolk cheered, their spirits high as they set to work. Mia felt the energy around her pulse with hope and determination. This was not just a village, it was a community, a family bound by shared experiences and a fierce love for one another. As the days turned into weeks, Mia and her friends worked tirelessly to rebuild their village. They reinforced the walls, constructed lookout towers, and set up patrols to monitor the surrounding area. Every task was a testament to their resilience and a commitment to their home. Mia often found herself working alongside Greg, Leela, and Ethan, their laughter and camaraderie a reminder of the bonds they had forged through adversity. They shared stories of the battle, reliving moments of bravery while simultaneously planning for the future. We can't forget what happened, Ethan said one afternoon, pausing to wipe the sweat from his brow. We need to use this experience to make us stronger. I agree, Mia replied, leaning on her shovel. We've already proven that we can fight back. Now it's about ensuring our community is safe for the long term. Just as they were starting to feel a sense of stability, news arrived that shook the very foundation of their newfound peace. Scouts reported sightings of Zeltharian patrols on the outskirts of the village. They're regrouping faster than we anticipated, Leela said, her voice tense as they gathered in the central square to discuss the situation. We need to prepare for an imminent attack. Mia felt a knot form in her stomach. What should we do? We can't let them catch us off guard again. Elara stepped forward, her expression grave but determined. We need to create a strategy that will keep our community safe. We'll need to split our forces, some to fortify the village and others to engage the patrols. Ethan nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. I can lead a team to scout their movements and disrupt their patrols. We'll need to know their numbers and their plans. The atmosphere in the village shifted as the news of the Zeltharian patrols spread. What had begun as a hopeful resurgence was now overshadowed by a looming threat. Mia felt a sense of urgency swell within her, but she knew they couldn't let fear paralyze them. They had overcome so much already. They had to face this new challenge head-on. In the central square, the townsfolk gathered, their expressions a mixture of determination and concern. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the cobblestone streets, echoing the gravity of their situation. All right, everyone, listen up. Elara's voice rang clear above the murmurs. We have confirmation of Zeltharian patrols nearby. We need to act quickly and strategically. We can't afford to let them catch us unprepared again. Mia stepped forward, feeling the weight of her community's gaze upon her. We need to gather as much information as possible about their movements. Ethan, if you lead a scouting party, we can track them and report back. Leela and I can work on reinforcing the defenses here. Ethan nodded, already in planning mode. I'll take a few of the best scouts with me. We need to be silent and swift. If we can learn their numbers and routines, we can use that to our advantage. I can help with the traps, Leela suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. We can set up barriers and distractions around the village to slow them down if they do attack. Perfect, Mia replied, a sense of confidence blooming in her chest. Let's not waste any time. We need to be ready before they realize we're onto them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the townsfolk began to mobilize. Mia felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as she worked alongside Leela, gathering supplies to fortify the village. "Over here," Leela called, gesturing to a stack of wooden planks. "We can use these to reinforce the entrance. If they come in, we want to slow them down." Mia nodded, working quickly to secure the planks in place. "And we can set up a few traps just inside the main gate. If they push through, it'll give us a moment to regroup." Leela grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. "I've been working on some ideas for snares and noise traps. If we can distract them long enough to get everyone to safety, that'll buy us precious time." As they strategized, Mia felt the presence of their communities surrounding them. Each task, each piece of wood they lifted, was a step toward protecting what they had fought so hard to reclaim. She could see determination in everyone's eyes, a collective resolve that bound them together. Hours passed, and as the stars twinkled overhead, Ethan's scouting party returned. Mia's heart raced as she spotted him approaching, his expression serious but relieved. "We saw them," he announced, drawing the attention of the gathered townsfolk. "They've got a larger force than we anticipated, but they seem to be disorganized. We can exploit that." Mia stepped forward, her pulse quickening. "What's the situation? How many did you see?" "There are at least 20 of them," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "But they're moving in small groups, likely scouting for weaknesses. It looks like they're planning a coordinated attack, but they don't seem to be working together effectively." Leela furrowed her brow. "If they're divided, we can take them out in smaller numbers. We could set traps in strategic locations to draw them in." Elara crossed her arms, contemplating their options. "If we can lure them into a confined space, we can ambush them. But we need to be careful. They may be disorganized, but they're still dangerous." As the group deliberated, ideas flowed freely. Mia felt a surge of inspiration as she proposed a plan. "What if we create a decoy? We can set up a false camp on the outskirts of the village, with some supplies to draw them in. When they're distracted, we hit them from the sides." "Great idea," Ethan said, enthusiasm igniting in his voice. "We can set traps around the decoy, then wait for them to come. Once they're engaged, we can cut them off." Leela nodded vigorously. "And I can create noise distractions further out to draw them in even more. We'll keep them off balance and give ourselves the upper hand." Mia felt the energy in the air shift, the townsfolk rallying behind their plan. "All right, let's divide into teams. One team will set up the decoy and traps, while another focuses on reinforcing our defenses here in the village. We'll need to be ready for anything." As the townsfolk dispersed to their tasks, Mia took a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the weight of the responsibility settle on her shoulders. She glanced at her friends, who were already coordinating their efforts, their resolve steady. "Do you think we can pull this off?" Leela asked, her voice barely above a whisper as they gathered supplies for the decoy. Mia met her gaze, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. "We have to. This is our home, and we're not going to let anyone take it from us." Leela nodded, a spark of confidence igniting in her eyes. "You're right. Together, we can do anything." As night enveloped the village, the townsfolk worked tirelessly, driven by the shared purpose of protecting their home. The air was filled with a sense of camaraderie, laughter punctuating the serious atmosphere as they collaborated and shared stories. As the moon reached its zenith, Mia, Ethan, and Leela led a team to the edge of the village, setting up the decoy camp. They arranged supplies to make it appear as though the townsfolk were preparing for a night of rest, strategically placing crates and blankets. "Let's add a few scattered items that look like they were hastily left behind," Mia suggested, her mind racing with ideas. "It'll make it more convincing." Ethan nodded, adding some worn-out boots to the mix. "And we should leave a few campfires smoldering. It'll draw their attention from a distance." As they worked, Mia felt a flicker of hope. They were creating a plan, a chance to turn the tide against the Zeltharians. Each task they completed reinforced the bond between them, a reminder of the strength of their community. Once the decoy was set, The townsfolk returned to the village to reinforce their defenses. As night deepened, Mia felt a sense of urgency pressing down on her. They were ready, but the threat of the Zeltharians lingered like a dark cloud on the horizon. "I'll take the first watch," Ethan said, his voice steady as they gathered in the central square. "Leela, you should get some rest. We'll need our strength for whatever comes." Mia felt a pang of worry. "Are you sure you'll be okay out there alone?" "I'll be fine," he reassured her. "I'll stay alert and keep an eye out for anything unusual. Just be ready." As the night stretched on, Mia found it hard to relax. She paced the square, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. The bond between her friends and community gave her strength, but the uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Just as dawn began to break, painting the sky in soft pastels, a sudden rustling interrupted the stillness. Ethan, who had been on guard, shot up, his expression tense. "Everyone, get ready," he called, gripping his weapon tightly. "We've got movement." Mia's heart raced as she rushed to join him, the sound of footsteps approaching growing louder. But as the figure emerged from the shadows, Mia felt a mix of surprise and confusion. "Is that?" she whispered, squinting into the light. It was Greg, looking weary but determined. "I came to warn you. The Zeltharians are mobilizing faster than we thought. They know about the decoy." Ethan's eyes widened in alarm. "How do you know?" "I saw them moving in from the north," Greg explained, catching his breath. "They're planning to flank you. We need to act now." "Everyone, we need to rally," Mia shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. "They're coming sooner than we expected. Gather everyone." The townsfolk sprang into action, their faces shifting from exhaustion to focus as they prepared for the impending attack. Mia felt a surge of purpose, rallying her friends and neighbors with renewed vigor. "We've faced challenges before, and we've come through stronger each time," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Now, we stand together and protect our home." As the townsfolk rallied around her, the energy in the air shifted from uncertainty to determination. They knew the stakes, and they were ready to fight for what they held dear. With a sense of urgency, they organized themselves into teams, readying defenses and strategizing their approach. Leela quickly checked the traps they had set around the village, while Ethan coordinated with Greg, devising a plan to draw the Zeltharians into their traps. The morning light illuminated the village, casting long shadows as the townsfolk moved with a purpose. Mia could feel the tension crackling in the air. They were on the brink of a confrontation that would determine the fate of their home. Every heartbeat echoed the urgency of the moment, reminding her that this was not just another fight, it was a fight for survival. As the last preparations were made, Mia stood at the center of the village, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The townsfolk gathered around her, their faces set in grim resolve. She could see familiar faces among them: Ethan, Leela, Greg, and so many others who had become family in their shared struggle. "Remember, we've trained for this," Mia began, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. "We fought hard to reclaim our home, and we won't let anyone take it from us. We will protect each other. No one fights alone." Cheers erupted from the crowd, the sound invigorating her spirit. They were united, a community bound by a fierce determination to protect what they had built together. "Ethan, Greg, you'll lead the main defensive line," she continued, pointing to the two of them. "Leela and I will coordinate the traps and distractions. We'll draw them in and keep them off balance." "Let's use the terrain to our advantage," Ethan suggested, his voice a mix of authority and camaraderie. "We know these woods better than they do. If we can get them to funnel into narrow spaces, we can hit them hard." The townsfolk dispersed to their assigned positions, and Mia felt the weight of leadership settle heavily on her shoulders. She glanced at Leela, who was already preparing a set of noise traps, her eyes glinting with determination. "Let's get these ready," Leela said, her fingers deftly weaving together materials for the distraction devices. "I have a few ideas to really catch them off guard." Mia nodded, feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Every moment counts. Let's make sure we're ready when they arrive." As they worked, the sounds of the village buzzed around them. The clang of metal and the rustle of leaves filled the air as everyone prepared for the impending battle. Each movement felt synchronized, a choreography born from their shared experience and commitment to one another. Just as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a golden hue over the village, a distant rumble reached their ears. The scouts had spotted movement. The Zeltharian forces were approaching, their shadows stretching ominously toward the village. "Everyone, positions!" Mia shouted, her voice rising above the din. "We need to be ready." The townsfolk quickly took their places, hearts racing as they prepared to defend their home. Mia could see Ethan and Greg moving to the front lines, their expressions a mixture of focus and resolve. She felt a rush of pride in their bravery. Leela joined Mia at the edge of the village, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Are we ready for this?" Mia took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling on her. "We've trained for this. We know what to do." As the first wave of Zeltharian soldiers came into view, a chill ran down Mia's spine. They moved in formation, their dark armor glinting in the sunlight. The sight of the enemy ignited a fire within her. "Now," Ethan yelled, signaling the townsfolk to spring into action. The ambush began. Noise traps exploded around the Zeltharians, creating chaos and confusion among their ranks. The villagers took advantage of the disarray, striking from the shadows and drawing the Zeltharians into the traps they had set. Mia fought alongside Leela, adrenaline coursing through her veins. They worked seamlessly, supporting one another as they maneuvered through the chaos. Each blow struck felt like a statement of defiance against the threat that had loomed over their lives for so long. The clash of metal rang out as the battle escalated. The Zeltharians fought fiercely, but the element of surprise was on the villagers' side. Mia could see Ethan rallying their forces, shouting encouragements as they pushed back against the enemy. "Keep pushing. Don't let them break our lines," he called, his voice cutting through the chaos. Mia fought her way through, her heart pounding as she ducked under a swing aimed at her. She retaliated, her training guiding her movements. Each time she fought back, she felt the weight of her community behind her, spurring her on. "Leela," Mia called, spotting her friend nearby. "Let's flank them from the side." Leela nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. Together, they moved through the thickening fray, drawing on their teamwork and instincts to evade the enemy's strikes. As the battle raged on, Mia's eyes caught sight of a familiar figure in the distance, the Zeltharian general. He stood tall and imposing, directing his troops with a fierce intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "Leela, we need to take him down," Mia said, her voice resolute. "If we can disrupt their command, it'll throw them into chaos." "Let's do it," Leela replied, her determination matching Mia's. They weaved through the battlefield, avoiding combatants as they closed in on the general. The closer they got, the more daunting he appeared, his presence radiating authority. But Mia refused to let fear overwhelm her. They finally reached the general, who turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You dare challenge me," he sneered, drawing his weapon. "Yes, we do," Mia shouted back, adrenaline surging as they engaged. The fight began in earnest. The general was formidable, his movements precise and powerful. Mia and Leela fought side by side, their training and camaraderie evident as they worked to evade his strikes and counterattack. "Stay focused," Leela shouted, narrowly avoiding a swing from the general. "We can't let him intimidate us." Mia felt the heat of the moment, every muscle in her body tense with the effort. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for their home and each other. The stakes had never been higher. With each clash of weapons, Mia could feel the tide of the battle shifting. They were holding their ground, pushing back against the Zeltharians, but they needed to finish this fight. As they battled, Mia felt a surge of energy, a sense of purpose guiding her movements. With every strike, she thought of her friends, her family, and the home they had fought so hard to protect. "Now, Leela," Mia yelled, coordinating their final strike. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They launched their attack together, their strikes synchronized in perfect harmony. The general stumbled back, momentarily caught off guard. Mia seized the opportunity, lunging forward with all her strength. Her blade met his armor, and the sound echoed through the chaos of the battlefield. In that moment, the Zeltharian forces faltered. They were losing their command, and with it, their resolve. As the battle wore on, the Zeltharians began to retreat. The sight of their general faltering was enough to break their morale. The townsfolk rallied, pushing forward, driving the enemy back into the shadows from whence they came. But amidst the victory, Mia's heart sank as she scanned the battlefield. She spotted Greg, lying motionless on the ground, a few yards away from the chaos. Her heart raced, and she dashed toward him, fear clawing at her throat. "Greg," she called out, her voice breaking as she knelt beside him. "Please, stay with me." Leela followed closely, her expression shifting from triumph to horror. "No, no, no." Greg's face was pale, and blood stained the earth around him. "Mia," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "We won." "Stay with me, Greg. Help is coming," Mia insisted, her hands trembling as she pressed against his wounds. But the light in his eyes was fading. "You fought so well. You've got to keep fighting, for all of us." Tears stung Mia's eyes as she tried to keep him awake. "Don't you dare leave us. We need you." As the sounds of celebration began to ring out in the distance, a heavy silence enveloped them. Mia felt a crushing weight in her chest as she held Greg's hand, desperately trying to bring him back. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," he whispered, a small smile on his lips. "You're going to be amazing. I believe in you." And then, just like that, the light in his eyes went out, leaving Mia with an unbearable emptiness. "No, Greg," she cried, her heart breaking as she realized what had happened. She clung to him, her tears falling freely, grief washing over her like a tidal wave. Leela knelt beside her, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mia, I'm so sorry." Mia felt a deep sorrow settle in her chest, the pain of loss intertwining with the joy of their victory. We were supposed to keep fighting together. We were supposed to be safe." The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the village, but the warmth felt distant. Mia sat on the edge of the clearing, where the battle had unfolded just hours before, her heart heavy with grief. The celebration that erupted after the Zeltharians retreated felt hollow in the wake of their loss. Greg was gone, and the weight of that loss pressed down on her like an anchor. The townsfolk were still celebrating their hard-fought victory, but for Mia, the joy felt muted. She could hear laughter and shouts of triumph mingling with the sounds of rebuilding, but it all felt like a distant echo, a world she no longer felt part of. Leela approached, her face a mask of sympathy. "Mia, I know this is hard," she began softly, but Mia cut her off. "How can they celebrate?" Mia's voice trembled with anguish. "Greg gave his life for this victory. We should be mourning, not cheering." "I know, and we will," Leela assured her, kneeling beside Mia. "But we also need to remember that Greg fought to protect us. He wouldn't want us to forget the fight we still have ahead." Mia felt a surge of anger. "But it's not fair. We were supposed to keep each other safe. We promised." Leela reached out, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder. "We did. And that's why we have to keep fighting for him, for everyone we've lost and everyone we still have." Mia wiped her eyes, grappling with a mix of grief and determination swirling within her. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now, we honor him," Leela said, her voice steady. "We gather the village and remember those we've lost. We can't let their sacrifices go in vain." Mia nodded slowly, feeling a sense of purpose begin to replace her sorrow. "You're right. We can't forget them." As the two of them walked back toward the village square, the sounds of celebration began to fade, replaced by a solemn hush. Townsfolk were starting to realize the gravity of their losses, and the atmosphere shifted from jubilant to reflective. Mia stepped up onto a makeshift platform, calling for attention. "Everyone," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Can we gather together for a moment? We need to remember those we've lost. As the villagers gathered, a heaviness settled over the crowd. Faces that had been lit with joy now wore expressions of sorrow and concern. Mia felt their collective grief, and it strengthened her resolve. Once everyone had gathered, Mia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their gazes upon her. Today, we faced an enemy that sought to destroy us. And in that fight, we lost brave souls, friends, family, and neighbors. Greg, her voice cracked, but she pressed on. Greg gave everything to protect us. He believed in this community, in our fight, and in each of you. Tears glistened in the eyes of the villagers, and Mia's heart ached for the loss they all shared. We cannot let his sacrifice be forgotten. We must carry on his spirit in our hearts as we continue to defend our home. We owe it to him and to everyone else we've lost. The crowd nodded, their expressions shifting from despair to determination. Ethan stepped forward, his face solemn. Greg was a hero, he said, his voice firm. He fought for us until the very end. We will honor him by standing together and fighting for our future. Leela added, and we'll rebuild. We will make this village stronger, not just for ourselves, but for those who sacrificed everything for us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Mia led a small ceremony to honor the fallen. They lit candles, creating a circle of flickering light around a small makeshift altar adorned with wildflowers, symbols of hope and resilience. One by one, villagers stepped forward to share stories and memories of their loved ones. The air was thick with emotion, but amid the sorrow, there was a palpable sense of unity. They remembered the laughter, the kindness, and the unwavering spirit of those who had fought beside them. Mia listened intently, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and grief as she heard the stories. Each word spoke of a legacy of bravery and love that would not be forgotten. When it was her turn, Mia spoke from the heart. Greg believed in this village, in each of us. He wanted us to be safe, to thrive. We owe it to him to carry on, to ensure that our home remains a sanctuary for everyone who comes here. As the candles flickered in the twilight, the villagers shared their tears and their laughter, recounting moments that defined their relationships with those they had lost. The heaviness in Mia's heart began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. They were not alone in their grief. They were a community bound together by love and loss. The ceremony concluded, and the villagers dispersed, but Mia felt a renewed sense of determination within her. They had faced an enemy, and although they had suffered losses, they had also emerged stronger, more united. As night enveloped the village, Mia and Leela sat on the steps of the central square, exhausted but resolute. "What do we do now?" Mia asked, her voice softer, the adrenaline of battle giving way to a quiet reflection. "We rebuild," Leela replied, her gaze fixed on the stars beginning to twinkle above. "And we prepare for whatever comes next. The Zeltharians will be back. We need to be ready." In the days that followed, the village came together in a spirit of resilience. The loss of Greg and the others was a constant ache, but it also fueled their determination to protect their home. They worked side by side, rebuilding what had been damaged and fortifying their defenses. Mia found herself leading the effort alongside Ethan and Leela. They trained the townsfolk in combat skills, shared knowledge about traps and strategies, and instilled a sense of pride and capability in each member of their community. "We can't let fear dictate our actions," Mia reminded them during their training sessions. "We've faced challenges before, and we've always come out stronger. Together, we can overcome anything." The villagers embraced her words, their spirits lifted as they honed their skills and prepared for the future. They practiced relentlessly, pushing each other to become better, stronger, more united. But as they trained and rebuilt, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Rumors spread of larger Zeltharian forces gathering, their sights set on the village. Scouts reported sightings of unusual movements in the surrounding woods, more than just patrols, but signs of a larger campaign. One evening, as Mia and her friends reviewed maps and strategies in the dim light of the town hall, Ethan frowned, studying the parchment before them. "This isn't just a small skirmish anymore. They're preparing for something big. We need to be ready. Leela crossed her arms, concern etched on her brow. We can't afford to let them catch us off guard again. We need to find a way to disrupt their plans. Mia leaned over the map, tracing the routes they had previously scouted. What if we set up a series of diversionary tactics? If we can mislead them about our defenses, we might buy ourselves time to strengthen our positions. Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. We could create false camps, draw their attention away from the village. But we need to make sure we're prepared for a counterattack when they realize they've been tricked. In the days that followed, the village became a hive of activity. They constructed decoy camps, setting them up far from the village, complete with smoke signals and scattered supplies to give the appearance of a thriving settlement. It was a gamble, but it was one they were willing to take. Mia and her friends worked tirelessly, rallying the villagers to prepare for the worst. The atmosphere shifted from one of despair to one of determination. They were fighting not just for their home, but for each other. As they gathered for their final preparations, Mia felt the weight of their collective resolve. No matter what happens, we face it together, she said, her voice strong and unwavering. We protect our home, and we protect each other. We won't let fear dictate our lives any longer. The townsfolk responded with cheers, their voices rising in unity. The spirit of their fallen friends seemed to echo in the air, strengthening their resolve. As dusk fell, the village settled into a tense quiet. They had done everything they could to prepare for the fight ahead. Mia stood on the outskirts, watching the horizon, her heart racing with anticipation. She could feel the energy in the air, charged, electric, and full of possibility. Suddenly, a distant rumble reached her ears, and a chill ran down her spine. The Zeltharian forces were on the move. "They're coming," Mia shouted, urgency coursing through her. "Everyone, positions," Ethan called, his voice commanding. The villagers sprang into action, taking their places along the defenses. Mia positioned herself beside Leela, their eyes locked in a silent understanding. They were ready. The time for fear was over. Now was the time. The air crackled with tension as Mia stood shoulder to shoulder with her friends, the villagers arrayed behind them, hearts pounding in unison. The distant rumble grew louder, a foreboding sound echoing through the valley, signaling the approach of the Zeltharian forces. Mia took a deep breath, steadying herself as she scanned the horizon. "This is it," she whispered to Leela, who stood beside her, eyes focused and determined. "We can do this," Leela replied, her voice steady. "We've prepared for this moment. We've trained hard, and we know our land better than they do." A sense of calm washed over Mia, the urgency of the moment grounding her. She thought of Greg and all the others they had lost. Their sacrifices weighed heavily on her, fueling her resolve. They were not just fighting for their village. They were fighting for every life that had been touched by this war. Ethan moved through the ranks, giving quiet encouragement, checking on everyone's readiness. "Remember your training. Stay together. Watch each other's backs." His voice was a beacon of strength amidst the rising chaos. As the first shadows of the Zeltharian army crested the hill, Mia's heart raced. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a hush fell over the villagers. "Here they come," someone shouted, and a wave of anxiety rippled through the crowd. Mia clenched her fists, focusing on the line of dark figures marching toward them, armor glinting ominously in the fading light. Mia looked back at the villagers, seeing fear and determination etched on their faces. "We fight for each other," she shouted, raising her sword high. "For our home, for those we've lost." A chorus of shouts erupted in response, their voices echoing through the valley, drowning out the approaching footsteps. They were ready. The first Zeltharians reached the outskirts of the village, their formation solid and unyielding. Mia felt her pulse quicken as she took her place at the front, alongside Ethan and Leela. With a loud battle cry, the Zeltharians surged forward. The villagers met them with a wall of determination, the sound of clashing metal ringing in the air. Mia plunged into the fray, the world around her blurring into a chaotic whirlwind. She fought with precision, her movements guided by the countless hours of training. Each swing of her sword was fueled by the memory of Greg, a silent promise that she would protect what they had built. "Watch your left," Leela shouted, ducking beneath a swing and countering with a quick thrust. They moved in sync, a dance of survival and strength, supporting each other amidst the chaos. Ethan rallied the townsfolk, his voice cutting through the noise. "Hold the line, we can't let them break through." Mia caught a glimpse of the Zeltharian general at the front, directing his troops with cold precision. Anger surged within her, he had taken so much from them. "We need to take him down," she shouted to Leela and Ethan. "If we can disrupt their command, it'll throw them into chaos." "Let's go," Ethan replied, determination igniting in his eyes. Together, they pushed through the throng, weaving between fighters, using the terrain to their advantage. The villagers fought valiantly, holding the line against the relentless wave of Zeltharian soldiers. Mia's heart raced as they approached the general, who stood tall, surveying the battle with a cold, calculating gaze. "There," she shouted, pointing. "We can reach him." They moved as one, weaving through the chaos, their resolve strengthening with each step. As they drew closer, the general turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. "You dare challenge me?" he snarled, raising his weapon. "Yes," Mia shouted, charging forward. The world narrowed to a singular focus: her, the general, and the promise of victory. The general was a formidable opponent, his strikes powerful and precise. Mia met him head-on, her sword clashing against his with a ringing sound that reverberated through her bones. "We fight for our home," she shouted, pushing back against his force. "Foolish girl," he retorted, his voice dripping with disdain. "You cannot hope to win against us." But Mia felt the strength of her community behind her, their spirits bolstering her own. "We've already won," she countered, determination fueling her next strike. Leela and Ethan moved in tandem, flanking the general as they fought. With every blow, they wore him down, their movements a testament to their training and unity. "Stay focused," Ethan shouted as he parried a blow meant for Mia. "We're almost there." Mia felt a rush of gratitude. They were in this together, and they wouldn't back down. The battle raged on, the villagers holding their ground even as the Zeltharians pushed back. But slowly, surely, the tide began to shift. The general's face twisted in frustration as he struggled against the three of them. With a final coordinated effort, they launched their attack, Mia feinting left while Leela struck low. The general stumbled, caught off guard. "Now," Mia shouted, and they pressed their advantage. The general fought back fiercely, but the villagers were relentless. Mia felt the energy around her surge, the adrenaline propelling her forward. "Together," Ethan called out, and in a final, powerful strike, they struck simultaneously, their blades meeting the general's armor in a decisive blow. The general staggered back, disbelief etched on his face as he fell to the ground. Silence swept through the battlefield, and for a moment time seemed to freeze. Cheers erupted from the villagers as they realized what had happened. The Zeltharians, seeing their leader fall, hesitated. The momentum shifted, and the villagers pushed forward with renewed vigor. Mia felt a surge of exhilaration, the weight of their struggle lifting momentarily. They had done it. They had fought back against the tide, and in that moment of triumph, hope blossomed in her heart. But the victory was short-lived. As the Zeltharians began to retreat, a new wave surged forth from the forest reinforcements, larger and more menacing than before. Fall back, a Zeltharian officer shouted, rallying the remaining troops. Mia's heart sank. "We're not done yet," she said, grim determination flooding her veins. "We have to hold them off while we can." The villagers regrouped, adrenaline coursing through their bodies as they prepared for another wave. "Get ready," Ethan shouted, his voice booming over the din. "We can't let them break our lines." Mia moved to the front, her heart racing as she steadied her grip on her sword. The energy of the villagers surged around her, their resolve firming as they readied for the next battle. As the reinforcements charged, the villagers met them head-on. The clash was fierce, the sounds of battle echoing through the valley. Mia fought fiercely, channeling her grief into every swing of her sword. She felt the presence of Greg and the others with her, their spirits fueling her resolve. "For them," she shouted, rallying her fellow villagers. "For everyone we've lost." The battle raged on, the tide ebbing and flowing like a turbulent sea. But the villagers held strong, their unity a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Mia pushed forward, her focus unyielding. The Zeltharians were relentless, but the villagers fought with a fierce determination, refusing to give in. "Keep pushing, we can't let them overwhelm us," Ethan shouted, parrying a blow aimed at Mia. Leela fought beside Mia, her movements fluid and precise. "We have to create a barrier," she called out. "We need to funnel them into the traps we set." "Good idea," Mia replied, her heart racing. "Let's move." Together, they maneuvered through the battlefield, leading the Zeltharians toward the traps they had laid earlier. The villagers coordinated their movements, channeling their energy into one focused effort. As the Zeltharians surged forward, Mia's heart pounded in her chest. "Now!" she shouted, and the traps were triggered, sending debris and noise crashing down, creating chaos among the enemy ranks. With the Zeltharians disoriented, the villagers seized the opportunity to strike back. Mia felt the rush of energy as they pushed forward, gaining ground against the enemy. "Keep fighting! We can do this!" Ethan yelled, his voice rising above the chaos. Mia moved with purpose, each strike fueled by the memory of their fallen friends. She could see the Zeltharians faltering, their lines breaking as the villagers surged forward. With each victory, a renewed sense of hope washed over them. They were reclaiming their home, fighting back against the darkness that had threatened to engulf them. As the last of the Zeltharians began to retreat, a roar of triumph erupted from the villagers. Mia felt tears prick at her eyes as the realization sank in they had done it. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Mia looked around at her vibrant village, her heart full of gratitude and hope. The laughter of children, the warmth of community, and the memories of those they had lost all blended together into a beautiful tapestry of resilience. With every passing day, they honored the past while embracing the future, forging a path that was uniquely their own. Together, they had created a home not just rebuilt, but transformed a place where love and unity reigned. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air wrap around her like a comforting blanket. She knew the journey ahead would have its challenges, but she was ready. With her friends and family beside her, they would face anything that came their way. And in that moment, she felt a profound sense of peace. The end.